Right, Jim. This one has a close 128. Good morning. Oh, look, can you hear me?
Good morning, just I hear you perfectly. Can you hear me well?
Yep. Yep. Everything looks good. What I'll do is I
Excellent.
will just make you the host, a co-host, and I'll if something comes up, I'll be in the background to help out. But I'll also admit people and help people get back in and all that. It's usually that kind of administrative stuff so that you can just kind of focus on doing what you do. That makes
Thank you,
sense?
thank you so much, Charles. It's good to see you in person after all these months of
Yeah.
exchanges. Finally
I
we made
appreciate
it.
you.
We made it.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was gonna say. I appreciate you sticking with me through this. I think it's just a matter of getting the marketing just right and getting the right message in front of the right people. And sometimes that's a bit of a challenge. But oops, my phone's ringing. But anyway, we'll keep plugging away. Now, you have the one scheduled for couples, February 28th. Are we still good with that?
I believe so. That's for February 28th.
Yes.
Okay, I think it's fine. I mean, I will be in Mexico then, so I should be in your time frame, from 10 to 11, I think.
Okay.
Uh, so I will confirm once I arrive to Mexico. I'm flying to Mexico like on Sunday. I'm gonna stay
Okay.
there the whole month, so I will be have time. But I think like now where I'm staying now has like a Starlink, so it should be completely fine. But I want to make sure when I arrive there, I'll confirm that the connection is super good.
Okay, good. Yeah, no
Because
problem at all. We have,
yeah,
we'll start pushing out marketing real heavy, next week sometime probably. But I'll
yes,
wait to hear from you to know for sure.
excellent. Yeah, I know the one of the spiritual couples. I think it should go. I think there is. Yeah, I don't know what happened last time. You mentioned there was a lot of uncertainty with elections and Trump and everything, and everybody was kind of.
Yeah.
So hopefully this time
Yeah,
will go. But we perseverate, and now this is happening. 12 people. It's not great, but it's good enough. So I'm happy
exactly.
that we're doing this.
All right, cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think that, things are settling down some. Also, what I mentioned to you before, well, I have you, I mentioned to you before that I'm interested in doing a like digital nomad um kind of theme, for some courses that are about that. Like here's, how you might do, that kind of thing. And I have and I think I mentioned this also. I have someone who's a lawyer out of New York City that's looking into that, and she's within the next week or two, she should have a short course to share with
Uh-huh.
us on that. So I
Excellent.
want to use that as a way to, so that we're not giving people advice that's bad, right? So the legality, she's also an ethics expert. And
Okay,
so
good.
once I hear from her, then I'll be kind of pushing that direction. You'll get some communication with me. I got somebody coming in now, so I'm going to admit them, and then I'm going to just kind of go in the background here and let you do your thing. I'll be listening. If you need any help or anything, I'm right here.
Okay, so people are starting to come in. Are you
I got
allowing
them.
people to come in already, or shall we
Yeah,
wait
I got
until?
them. They're
Okay.
coming up now. And I'll keep my eye on it and keep letting people
Are
in, so you
you
don't
gonna
have to really worry.
are you gonna introduce the thing before I start speaking, or?
I know you can go ahead and
Oh,
do
okay.
that. That's okay. Just
Okay.
kind of do it like you would if it's your own thing. Hang on, I'm trying to
That's
figure out
great.
to
That's
get
great.
you the hold on. I'm gonna give you like
Let me
admin
let me
permissions.
just make sure I can put my share my PowerPoint. Let's
Yeah,
see.
you should be able to
Uh,
now.
let's see. Oh yes. Okay, here it is. And then I share it. Right,
Yep.
perfect. Okay. So
Okay.
I'm gonna stop sharing now because we'll start just without that.
Yeah.
Oh,
I have this introduction screen up for the moment, but I'll take that
okay.
down, in a minute or two. We'll let some people come in. I think we have, I think you mentioned that there was one person that you're aware of that was not going to be able to attend live. And I talked to a lady yesterday or day
Yes.
before that they're going to need the recording. So that's what part of the reason we always record
Oh,
anyway,
so
because
maybe it's like two people that they will not be able to attend
yes,
that are
that's what we're
okay. So
expecting.
then
So
we'll
we
be
should
like
have like 10.
10. Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent, excellent, excellent. And here we have our first participant, who is someone I know very well, Masood. How are you,
Hi,
Masood?
Jorge.
So good to see you
Good
in
to
the
see you
screen.
too.
Excellent. Charles Masood is like a professor of psychology from Tehran who now lives in Canada, and he studied at CIS. He's another second PhD.
Oh,
And
excellent.
we know each other for many years. We're also good friends.
It's always good to have people in the crowd too, right?
Oh,
For
I
sure. And
think
I think
half of the people that are coming, I know, I think I know them. They are, yeah, I know them from
yeah.
different
That's
ways.
what I was getting ready to say. I'm pretty sure that looking at the list, I'm pretty sure that a lot of them are, that are actually going to be here are folks that know you already, because my
Yeah,
list tends to be certain areas, and so that's been kind of sparse. But we do have a couple, so that's good.
excellent,
All right,
excellent, excellent.
I'm gonna mute myself here because I got somebody in the background here that wants to talk to me, and I'll be
Sure,
listening. And give me a holler if you need anything. Thanks. Nice to meet
absolutely.
you.
Thank you so much, Charles. Charles, one more thing. Charles?
Yeah, I'm here. Go
Oh,
ahead.
depending on how we do with time, I may do the breakout rooms. If I decide to do that, then I'll just say, Charles, can we do breakout rooms? Okay.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and the
Uh,
breakout room thing is really a simple matter. Let me see. If you go, look at the top of your screen, there's an ellipse and it says the word more. If you click on that, it'll give you a drop down and there's your breakout rooms. It'll just kind of do it on the fly, but I'll help you with it if you want to do it. No problem.
yeah, if you can, because I've never done it, they always do it for me. I'm kind of spoiled that way,
Sure.
and
Yeah, no problem.
I don't even see that. I don't see the more that you say. I don't see it. I'm super
Okay,
bad.
well,
I need to get a hold of that on that.
yeah. So, I mean, that's no problem. I'll be here. Just give me a holler and I'll just go ahead and set them up for you. It pretty much does it on the
Wonderful.
fly.
We
So it's
may do it or we
pretty
may not do
straightforward.
it. Let's see how we
Okay.
do with everything in the process.
All right. Yep, no
Wonderful,
problem.
Charles.
Just let me know. Thanks.
Okay, very good. Hey,
How are you?
you're Masood. I'm
Okay,
good. Just
good. Good to see
arrived to
you.
Barcelona yesterday. Yeah, it has been a little hectic with the traveling and leaving Ibiza and arriving here yesterday, and lots to do before leaving Sunday for
You
Mexico and
leave on
here with
Sunday
my.
tomorrow?
Tomorrow is Saturday. I leave on Sunday morning,
Sunday
Sunday
morning.
early morning, and I arrive on Sunday very late after a very long trip. Like,
How long is the trip?
oh my God, it's like 10 hours and a half to Mexico DF, 4 hours in the airport, and then 1 hour and 15 minutes
Wow,
to
wow. It's
Puerto
very
Escondido,
taxing.
and 1 hour and 15 minutes in car to Mazunte. It's gonna be like a
Wow,
whole
wow.
day, you know.
So, there is no direct flight to Mazunte from
No, there is no airports there. There's two closer airports, Puerto Escondido and then Huatulco. The two are very close. But you may you may find flights, I don't know, direct from where you are to Puerto Escondido. I'm sure no, you'll have to go through DF or Guadalajara or something like this. You have to take a couple of planes.
Yeah, I think I have to go to Mexico City and then go to one
Yeah.
of those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of those two. Yeah, those two are kind of similar distance from Basunte. So whatever is cheaper, whatever is kind of similar.
Is Mazunte closer to Canada or Cancun?
I would say you're in Vancouver, right?
Yeah,
I would say that Mazunte is closer because it's in the west coast, while
yeah.
Cancun is in the east coast, you know.
Oh, okay.
So it's
Yeah,
kind of closer to
yeah,
where
yeah, yeah,
Canada would be,
yeah,
you know. It
yeah,
should
yeah,
be
yeah, yeah,
closer, but
yeah,
maybe the flights are not as direct. You could fly
yeah, yeah, yeah,
direct, right,
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
Cancun because it's so touristic and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But excited that you're coming.
Yeah, I'm
Wow. And
coming.
Hank,
I probably
yeah,
come around like 25th or 26th.
26, that's too late. Come on.
Yeah, because
Okay.
Sheena's daughter has a birthday of a friend that she
Okay.
needs to, there is
Okay.
some child related
Okay,
thing.
no worries. I think that's
So
fine. You will be there
I
from
could
the
come like 16.
uh-huh.
If not this weekend, like the next weekend, Francois is here.
Okay, 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 okay.
So he
Okay.
will come on. So then I basically next week I'm off, and then I cannot take 2 weeks off
Yeah,
in
yeah,
a
yeah,
row.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. I mean, if you come on the 26th, it's fine because Annabelle will come on the 22nd, so I can have a few days with her. And then you
yeah,
come on the 26th. I'm at there until March 4th.
yeah,
She lives on the 28th. No, she lives on March 2nd. So you'll coincide with her like
yeah,
like
yeah,
6 days. That's good. And
yeah,
Sheena would be coming if you come on the
yeah, yeah,
20th. Oh,
yeah,
excellent, excellent, excellent. That would be amazing. Will be a big
yeah,
reunion.
yeah, yeah,
Excellent,
yeah,
excellent.
yeah,
Yeah, and Annabelle's friends are coming, I think on the 20, yeah, like this 25, 26,
yeah.
something like that.
I'm
Yeah,
not sure about the date, but I will see Sheila tomorrow, and then I will let you know the exact date.
yes. So I think the time
Is the workshop for 3 hours?
is 3 hours, yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll have like
I'm
some,
glad that you are recording the workshop. I've heard,
it's been
I left you a
recorded.
message. I don't know if you heard listened to my message or not.
I didn't see that, but it's been recorded. Charles records this, and then
Yeah,
he can send it to anyone who cannot
yeah,
hear, stay for the
yeah,
whole time,
yeah.
something.
So I am a bit sick. I could not sleep last night. This
Yeah.
is now like very early morning. I was up from 3 to 6 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then so if I want to sleep, I would miss the workshop.
Okay.
So I stood awake but
Okay, okay,
I'm
okay.
weak and sick, and so let's see how it goes.
Okay, we have Carlota. Carlota, are you here? We see
Yes.
you. Oh, you're here. Oh, there you go.
Hello, Carlota. I don't see Carlota. I pinned you, so I
I
have to
see her.
remove the pin.
Yeah, I
I can
think
see her.
because there's
Okay,
some people
now I see
coming in.
Carlota.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi, Carlota.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
Such a coincidence.
Hmm.
So let's wait. There should be like it's like 12 people. Two cannot be here. They will be sent the recording, but the other eight, in addition to both of you, should be coming. Michael entered the room. Okay. Let's wait like a few minutes so everybody's here. Was please a critical mass. Hi, Michael. Welcome. Hello. We're waiting for a few more minutes, Michael. There should be like at least seven more people coming in. So maybe they're a bit late. So I'm gonna wait maybe at least. Okay, another person is coming. And that's Cedar. Cedar is here. Wonderful to see you. Wonderful to see you. So see that what I just say was telling to Michael who just came in. We're waiting for more people. Oh, see, there should be at least 6 more people attending, and other people who cannot be here, they will get the recording. So, but let's wait a few more minutes, even if we have to go a bit later to see if there is at least 3 or 4 more coming before we start. You're good, Sidar?
Yes, I'm good. Great to see you. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. And you, Michael, where are you joining us from?
I am here in California.
Oh,
So,
wow. Okay. Bay Area or LA or somewhere
no,
else?
I'm in the mountains, in a little town in the mountains called Sonora, about 2
Oh,
hours,
yeah.
2
Yeah,
hours
yeah,
from the
yeah.
Bay Area. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I used to live in the Bay Area for 23 years, so I know
Yeah.
where you are.
You
Beautiful
know who
place.
this is Michael Anderson, Jorge.
Oh my God, you're Michael. I didn't recognize you. You know, like I have like this very small. I don't know how you see. Do you see like a big thing and the small screens? Because I see all the small
Yeah, yeah.
screens.
Well,
Okay, I didn't recognize you for a
Hello,
I
second.
haven't seen you
Charles.
for
How are
15
you? I
years.
can recognize Charles right away as soon as I see him.
Yeah.
You had too many students in CIS, Jorge.
No, but I know Michael. Of course, I know Michael very well.
He was your TA in one of the classes.
Oh my God, yeah. You were a teaching assistant, teaching assistant in embodied spiritual inquiry once, right?
In comparative mysticism too.
Oh, in
Yeah,
comparative mysticism.
yeah, he was in
Yeah.
comparative mysticism with
This
us.
is
Wonderful.
my all-time favorite course.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I would say let's wait a few more minutes.
Hi, Michael.
I hope people got the right time because there is
you.
all these different time zones, and I hope people get that right. Charles, our host, is not here, but is kind of in the background. So, Charles, can you hear me, Charles? Just want to check
Yeah.
with him. Charles, hi.
Hi.
I understand there is 6 other people who are supposed to be here. What do you think if we wait 5 more minutes and then we started with whoever is here?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. You know, it's really common, as you were just saying, with the different time zones, people get a little confused sometimes.
Okay.
So, and you know how that goes too. When you're wanting to start something at a certain time, you know,
Yes.
you don't always make it exactly on time. So,
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
5 more
fine.
minutes, that'd be fine. You
Yeah,
bet.
and is there a way you can like quickly email everybody else telling them that we're starting?
Sure. Yes,
I think
I'll take care of that. I'll send them
I think
out.
that would be super helpful. Thank you so much, Charles.
You bet.
Excellent. Okay.
Wonderful. Where have you landed, Jorge? Where are you at now?
I just got here to Barcelona yesterday, and on Sunday I'm flying to Mexico.
Great.
So I'm on the go. Has been like quite a lot going on, but yeah, closing things in Ibiza and then jumping here and lots of things, lot of unexpected things to do here. So, but I mean, this is kind of my quiet 3 hours. this, this webinar is, believe it or not, is my most restful, or it's gonna be my most restful time in the day. I hope, unless you guys give me too much trouble. Okay, and see that you are in, remind me.
Victoria, Canada.
Oh, you are in Canada too, like Masud.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
two Canadians. And Carlota, you are in Portugal now or somewhere else?
Yeah, I'm in the north of Portugal now, in the countryside.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just read like last week I read there was like some reports about Europe, and they say that North Portugal was one of the most affordable and beautiful places to live in Europe.
Mhm.
That people could live with, like very like tight budget and live, good quality of life,
Yeah, there's more and more people starting to come here to live.
Mm-hmm,
Americans also.
Americans too. Okay. Yeah, I have friends like buying land in Portugal, and it's like it's becoming fashionable. Okay, one more minute and we'll get started, and probably the rest of people will be joining us. Charles, you will admit people as they come, right? So I don't have to.
Yeah,
be alert.
I'll make sure that everyone gets in, no problem. I just sent that
Okay.
email out to them as well. So hopefully they'll see that, and hopefully that more people will turn up here in a minute or so.
Excellent. So we're gonna start just in 1 minute or less.
So we have 2 in Canada, 1 in Portugal, 1 in California, 1 in Spain. I don't know which.
Yes.
It's an international meetup. I like that.
Yeah, there is some of the other people I know they are coming. Another person is in Portugal as well, Bianca, and then the others, some people from the States, other people from the States, and we'll see. And oh yeah, and someone from Mexico is coming supposedly too. Okay, I think we should get started. Let's wait for Cedar to come back from wherever he went, and we'll go into it. Okay. Cedar, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
I-
wonderful.
I just
Very good. Someone else is coming. So let's wait for this person. And that's Nadine Keller. Hi, Nadine. I don't see her, but that's okay. So we're going to get started, and then Charles will be admitting the other people who will be arriving in hopefully in the next 5-10 minutes or wherever they arrive. So I'm going to start with, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes for a few moments. I start with a little of very brief guided meditation as a way also to get centered and also to start getting into the material a little more experientially. So, so let's see, view gallery, perfect. I don't see Nadine. Nadine was coming in, but now he's not here. So anyway, we'll get started. So let's close our eyes for a few moments and simply becoming aware of our breath as a vehicle to become more grounded in the present, in the here and now, as well as a way to, as we close our eyes and we focus on the breath, we start becoming aware of everything that is within us. Sensations, energy, emotions, feelings, expectations, whatever it is. And we simply welcome to everything that is emerging, that is present, offering like that sense of open presence from within, embracing the totality of our experience in this moment, whatever it is. Breathing into our hearts. It's a way to gently invite the intuitive knowledge of the heart to be a bit more present as well. And also breathing into the lower belly as a way also to invite that instinctive wisdom of life flowing through us, through our own vitality, our vital energy. And as we are a bit more connected with our inner world, I invite you to consider from this place to what extent do you feel, do you identify with this this description of being spiritual but not religious and what that means to you, just for a few moments. Without thinking about it, simply allowing to emerge any experience or quality or thoughts around that, but not looking for answers in a systematic intellectual way. What does those words, spiritual but not religious, evokes within you? Or perhaps you identify yourself with being neither spiritual nor religious. You allow yourself to be you're completely a secular practitioner, and you're curious about this population, and that's perfectly fine as well. And what does it mean for you to be neither spiritual nor religious? Or perhaps some of you consider yourselves religious but not spiritual. And if that's not the case, maybe you can also open yourself about what that description can evoke in you, being religious but not spiritual. What qualities, what emotions, what anything that wants to emerge. And finally, perhaps some of you consider yourself both religious and spiritual. And what does it mean for you to be both religious and spiritual? But again, without searching for anything in particular of what you have studied or read, allowing that fresh emergence of resonances or qualities to those different ways to engage that religious spirituality, binary or relationship. Some scholars say that to be spiritual or not is a question of selfhood, and being religious or not is a question of identity. Many different people think and feel about these words in different ways. And regardless of what's happening, before we close, once again I invite you to embrace unconditionally whatever has emerged within you, wherever there is like some positive connotations to those words, some negative connotations to those words. We all have different histories around those words. And just to embrace them with gratitude as teachers that help us to, in the process of our own spiritual individuation, our own spiritual identity, a spiritual or religious sense of who we are. And whenever you feel ready, at your own time, you can take a deep breath through your nostrils, into your heart, into your belly, and then release all the air through the mouth very, very slowly, releasing any tensions, releasing any expectations, releasing anything that is not serving you in this moment. And at your own pace, you can, whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes. And when all of us are here, we'll get started. Wonderful. So in this presentation, I'm going to talk first about this kind of binary of spiritual and religious, how it is understood today, scholarly, but also culturally and by contemporary practitioners of the spiritual and non-religious movement. We'll introduce the spiritual and non-religious movement, who they are, who we are, perhaps. But before we go there, maybe it could be helpful for me to from here. How many of you you can do like this, like thumbs up? How many of you consider yourself neither spiritual but nor religious? So neither spiritual nor religious. Okay, none. How many of you consider spiritual and religious? Okay, one, two. Yeah, good. How many of you consider yourself religious but not spiritual? Yeah, that's the one that normally gets less people in these settings. How many of you consider yourself spiritual but not religious? One, two, three. Okay, very good. Excellent. Thank you. Just to get a sense of here the audience. So, oops, hold on. Oops, I did something weird. Well, here you have like the four. I did something strange that now all the screens are covering my. Okay, oh, here you go. Perfect. Okay, so here you have. I have like a screen in. Okay, hold on. Okay, there you go. So here you have like the four different possibilities now, and these are kind of like the meanings like from different bodies of research, and also culturally speaking, like when you talk with people about religious and spiritual, especially spiritual but not religious people, this is kind of the different ways in which they differentiate. In general, today, like most spiritual but not religious people say that religious somehow is kind of like a bad thing. It's kind of like associated with dogma, with doctrine, with faith, and something that is patriarchal, that is authoritarian, that is mediated by tradition or priests, and then of course the spiritual authority comes from outside oneself. And also it's associated with this kind of more repressive, dissociative, and sexually denying of human nature. While spiritual today is like it's like a good thing, right? To be spiritual means to be open-minded. It's an emphasis on experience. It is post-patriarchal. It's more democratic than the religious traditions we grew up in general, and also it's also something to do with a direct contact with God or a spirit or the mystery or reality or somehow that give us a sense of inner spiritual authority. We don't need the priest anymore. We don't need the tradition. We have a direct connection, a direct path to the spirit. And there are many books with that title actually. And also something that is very like appealing to many contemporary practitioners is that spirituality is associated, in contrast to religion, with something to be integrative, embodied, and sexually positive. And this is very important because many people rejected religion out of sexual repression or like gender repression or sexual orientation repression and so forth. And then there is these are kind of like the main things, and there is other also connotations like religious is said to be in conflict with science, with all these myths and miracles and stuff. While spiritual is more understood as somehow being more reconcilable with science. Think about all these kind of dialogues between science and mystics, you know, the Dalai Lama and many other things, contemporary developments. And also the religion is normally considered, although it's not necessarily the case historically, as something to do with a sense of that kind of higher power, something transcendent to the world. And because it's transcendent to the world, this is associated sometimes with being ecologically or ignorant or pernicious somehow. while spirituality is considered like more immanent, more embodied, more here with us in nature, in the cosmos, in everything, although it can also have a quality of transcendence. And then, of course, with that immanent spirit comes like a greater sensitivity. And also religious wars. Religion has caused a lot of war, a lot of problems, while spirituality is more about uniting people, one-on-one, peace promoting, unifying. But in general, the idea in the contemporary spiritual culture is that religion is somehow outdated, is something obsolete, something of the past. Well, spirituality is kind of the new kid in town, is kind of contemporary, is like relevant for our times, extremely relevant for our times. This is like something I took from the internet, and you can have a quick look about some of these, spiritualities, about individual practice and beliefs, the power lies within you, inner spiritual authority versus God has the power, right? Learning from experience versus learning from sacred texts. Think for yourself, again, another appeal to that kind of inner spiritual authority versus to depend on others for guidance. So this is one of the key also things, that the idea is like really associated with faith, right? We have faith is that someone else experienced something, like in the past, like the Buddha experienced enlightenment, or Christ experienced like a redeeming pain of crucifixion and resurrection, and that's faith. But spirituality, the emphasis about having your own experience. It's not about believing in people's experiences, but having your own experiences. Again, this sense of experiential knowing. So the spiritual but not religious movement historically can be understood as kind of like emerging from a cognitive dissonance between a process of resacralization of the psyche, of nature and the world, of the cosmos that is ongoing. People start having like deep spiritual experiences. Even many of these people who are in the spiritual but not religious movement, is people who rejected religion for all those reasons, no? And actually, many of these people, they became secular for many years of their life, or even atheist. And then they start having different experiences, like either in psychotherapy or in meditation or in yoga or with psychedelics. And then they realize that they have like an experience of the world as being re-enchanted, being resacralized, and also their own deeper self. So how to do that without falling back in those religious strictures, in those kind of rigged, so we could understand like this kind of like a spiritual but not religious identity as the post-secular identity per excellence, and that it helps to resolve that cognitive dissonance, like that kind of like potential conflict between secularization and resacralization. And this has merits and some challenges, like with anything else. There's a pragmatic value, obviously, in allowing a spiritual search outside those doctrinal limitations and authoritarian religions that many of us experience in our very childhood and adolescence, young adulthood. And also conceptual value, because it captures that simultaneous secularization and resacralization I was talking before. But there's some challenges as well. On the one hand, there's an appropriation of spirituality by corporate capitalism. Once spirituality is understood as individual inner experience, it's much more easy to be co-opted by consumerism, mindfulness, ayahuasca international. Let's give you some experiences, let's sell you some experiences, for example, And then the second thing is like with that emphasis on individualism, individual experience, individual beliefs, and without, in general, with exceptions, of course, without the lack of the external checks and balances that being in a religious or contemplative tradition provides through peers, through teachers, through teachings, and so forth. There could be more spiritual distortions, and we'll be talking about this as we move forward, especially into the more counseling dimension of the talk. So, but before we go to those kind of challenges, I just want to go a bit deeper into what it is the spiritual and non-religious movement, who are they and what are their main features? What are their main beliefs? Who are these people? Who are some of you or some of us? I consider myself as well, by the way, spiritual but not religious. I would identify it with these kind of labels, so to speak. And something interesting is like in 2023, there was like a whole research like with 11,000 Americans, representative sample, the Pew Research Center, and they found out that 22% of Americans consider themselves spiritual but not religious, and 70% consider themselves spiritual in some way. Okay, so this is huge in the States. It's interesting because you have like 70% saying they're spiritual, 48 spiritual and religious, and 22% say they're spiritual but not religious. This is in Europe also. Those numbers are a bit lower, especially in Northern Europe. As you go to Portugal, to Spain and Italy, the number of spiritual but not religious and are higher because there is a great Christianity and spirituality is still much more strong in the Mediterranean than in northern Western countries. So you can see here already like it's like those of you who are in the States or have lived in the States, you need to understand the United States of America is a very anomalous country in this context. It's anomalous countries because the whole modern West went through a process of huge secularization that now is becoming more post-secular, as we will see. But that did never happen in the States. It's an anomalous country in the context of modernity. No, in the States, there's tremendous religiosity, especially forms of different denominations of Christianity. In the States, it would be unthinkable, for example, that a president would win without being Christian. Well, this doesn't happen in Europe at all. It can even backfire the other direction. Here you can see also how the numbers are growing from 2012 to 2017. People who were religious and spiritual in America went from 59 to 48. People who are spiritual but not religious went from 19% to 27%. Okay, so this is like a trend that it's unstoppable, it seems like, and is continued to grow into the spiritual but not religious and going down into the more religiosity, traditional religiosity. It's very likely that a few decades from now, I would hypothesize that there would be almost equal number of spiritual but not religious than religious people in the States. What do they mean by spiritual when 70% of Americans say that they are spiritual people? No, they believe things like this. These are the main things: that they have a soul, some kind of non-physical part of themselves in addition to the body, and also that there is something beyond the natural world that is studied by science, even if we cannot see it, some kind of power, some kind of spiritual something. And also, many of them also have a connection from something from beyond or something had passed away. There's a lot of research around that. This whole website devoted to this, like tremendous reports have been accumulated about so many people who had like that kind of like, I think has a name, like a it's not near death contact, like after death communication is the right term. And then some people have also encountered some kind of spirit of spiritual force. So this is tremendous. We're talking about millions and millions of people reporting these experiences only in the States. So it's in itself quite remarkable. So who are the spiritual but not religious people? I would say that they are composed of 4 different types of people that, of course, they overlap in many different ways, but for the sake of organization and clarity, visual clarity, I would say, all this movement, also it began with the counterculture and counterculture in the 60s and 70s that also become what we now call the New Age. Remember, like Paul McCartney Paul McCartney was one of the few people I have tracked saying, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. So Paul McCartney, of course, and the Beatles had like a huge influence on the counterculture, and in the culture at large, of course. And then also there is like a kind of people who are like philosophers and atheists, even like but they are considered secular and postmodern, but they have somehow a kind of a spirituality. The Sea of Faith organization in England with Don Cupid is paradigmatic of this. You know, they don't believe in God, they don't believe anything beyond this world, but they have a kind of spirituality. They consider themselves to be spiritual in a more immanent sense, like life is amazing, life is spiritual, it's sacred somehow. And this connects also with many of the scientists today. There's a whole of scientific spiritualism today, you know, many scientists who tell us that you can't really have like a transcendent experience, like contemplating the cosmos, you know, a sense of awe and reverence and so forth. But they don't believe in any kind of these kind of religious doctrines of the traditions. Also ecologically, from the art and aesthetics, of course, and poetry, and in the world of technology as well, you know, a lot of what is called the Burning Man techies, you know, of Silicon Valley, you know, you go to Burning Man, and I would say that 80% of people who go to Burning Man are spiritual but not religious of some kind, you know, and huge percentage they come from the tech world as well, you know. So, and the tech world, of course, is also connected to psychedelics, you know, which is the fourth area here. Psychonauts and psychedelics and tech worlds is connected to, and many of the techie people opening to spirituality through psychedelics, in addition to opening to like some breakthroughs in their work, as has been widely documented. And of course, also there is also the dimension of people who went to therapy, you know, both like professionals, like therapists, like psychologists, and clients. And they go into a process with a Jungian analysis or a humanistic transpersonal or an existential psychotherapies. And then through that process, they start kind of like tapping into dimensions of their deep unconscious that somehow reveal to them a sense of, for lack of a better word, they use a sense of the sacred in the psyche, within the psyche. Carl Gustav Jung is paradigmatic of this kind of bridge between the unconscious and the spirituality and the sacred. So these are the main spiritual beliefs of the movement. And most interestingly, the first two are kind of connected. Many of spiritual but not religious, they kind of reject the idea of a personal God. Why? Because this is a movement emerging in the West, and many of these people, they were kind of like constrained by Christianity, especially dogmatic or narrow forms of Christianity in their childhood. So they rejected this idea of a personal God, and then they kind of privilege like a sense of monies, like all is one, or some kind of non-dual monies, like my inner self, like Hindu Atman Brahman, my inner self is the same as the divinity, and so forth, you know. Most of them also, they believe in reincarnation and karma in different ways. There are many different takes on that. They also have like a facility to believe in paranormal faculties, see powers, and many of them had experiences of that, both with or without psychedelics. And also the value experience of non-religious transcendence, as we mentioned before, like cosmological, cosmic, or nature spirituality. That's a whole other field. And once again, we come back to that centrality of individual experience and transformation. And something we haven't really gone, and we'll go a bit later, most of them really value spiritual pluralism and syncretism, you know, a characteristic of both the New Age movement and the spiritual but not religious. They kind of like adopt and adapt, you know, into their own brand of spirituality, individual spirituality, religious and spiritual beliefs and practices from many different traditions. And they have like this sense of pride, like we value pluralism, the spiritual richness of humans, of history. As you will see, there will be some contradictions here later on. In these graphs, you can see, for example, like how many spiritual but not religious people, they believe much more in a cosmic force instead of a personal God. The second graph are kind of more religious, spiritual but not religious. And then also they favor more this individual spirituality versus kind of like having positive kind of attitudes towards religion. So this contrast between cosmic force versus a personal God is kind of research-based. There's a lot of research on that. And impersonal force versus kind of like personal God of Christianity or Judaism or even the Muslim tradition. And of course, this hasn't been taken very positively by, for example, Christian authors and Christian activists. No, this is like, for example, probably it's like I think a workshop or a podcast, Kingdom Come 2024. Her presentation was called "Spiritual but Not Religious: How New Age Beliefs Are Infiltrating the Church." Obviously, she's not happy about that. She's not happy about that precisely because those New Age beliefs are rejecting some of the core tenets of Christianity. There is like a personal God and not that kind of monistical one kind of for them kind of a spiritual mambo jumbo. This is another one kind of like a satire, no? What is, I'm a spiritual but not religious. Translation, I'm a New Ager. Don't tell me what I can or cannot do. I define everything by my feelings. I only follow my heart, okay? And here I am, the individualist, inner spiritual authority. I won't read the Bible because someone told me was missing books and was mistranslated. A New Age book said that everyone goes to heaven or reincarnates. Again, believe in reincarnation, so I'm not worried about my afterlife. But hey, one of my spirit guides is Jesus, among many others. I think this is quite typical of that movement. It's written in a satiric way because it's written probably very likely by some kind of Christian group or Christian people writing about this. Well, already mentioned like about that kind of values of pluralism and syncretism. So this is another of the main characteristics. We already have individualism, you know, and the other main characteristics, the centrality of anti-exclusivism, you know, different researchers, you know, the converts like saying like, you know, they perceive religion as a system that claims superiority about other worldviews, and they reject that. You know, they don't like that. That's exclusivism. That's something that they don't like. And here is Sandra Snyder. The repudiation of religion in favor of personal spirituality is actually the repudiation of denominational belonging rather than of religion as such, of this kind of belonging to one particular denomination. That's what has been rejected, according to Sandra Snyder. And Ben Mercadante, in another important book, Beliefs Without Borders, saying the religion of religion is actually a rejection of exclusivism that rejects all religions but one's own. So it's an affirmation of pluralism, a rejection of exclusivism, but as you will see, there is contradictions. So summing up this part of the presentation, I would say there's like the main three key features, you know, is this individualism, to privilege personal spiritual beliefs over historical and traditional ones. That was called by Robert Bellah, an important sociologist of religion, in his famous book, Habits of the Heart, Sheilaism, because he found one respondent, he was kind of interviewing many people about their spirituality. One respondent was called Sheila, and he asked Sheila, what is your tradition? What is your religion? He said, well, I follow my own tradition, and it's Sheilaism, you know. It's like I would say, my tradition is Jorgeism, you know, or Masood would say Masudeism. And he was saying that he was a bit concerned, Robert Bell, about that kind of extreme individualism. And as you will see in a moment, all these qualities that we could say that they are in a way value them positively in many different ways, but they can also get into distortions. They can also get into some challenges that are important to be aware when you counsel these spiritual but not religious clients that will go there. So the second main feature is that sense of inner spiritual authority, the privilege of my experience, my experiential knowing over what religious faiths and doctrines tell me that is true. And of course, some traditions, they would say something like that, especially Buddhism. Remember, you find Buddha on the road, kill him, saying like just, the important is your experience, not the books, the traditions. Although, of course, in Buddhism, there was many ways in which doctrines were paramount, shaping spiritual experience. And then the last one is what I call naive universalism, this idea that all religions are seeking the same thing or teach the same basic principles. This is called perennialism in the philosophy of mysticism. And then we start raising a question. Well, if you believe in that universalism, all religions teach the same thing, but at the same time you are rejecting a personal God. Well, that's kind of like sounds a contradiction, right? So how do you handle that? To go deeper, I'm not going to go more because we're going to move into more like counseling and relevant part of the presentation. But to go deeper, any of you who want to go deeper into the spiritual but not religious movement, these are, for me, are the three key books. The first one by Robert Fuller is the first book with this title, and it was Understanding Unchurched America, was published already decades ago, but still it's like a the foundational book, I would say. And then Being Spiritual but Not Religious is an anthology that I contributed with a chapter after a whole conference in Rice University that we all presented, and then we put this anthology together. And I would say it's a book, those of you who have like a more scholarly leanings, that's the way to go. And it's like more contemporary. It's a lot of research, there's a lot of very interesting papers there by William Parsons, Jeffrey Kripal, very, very interesting people. And then the last one, I would say, if you really want to hear from the spiritual but not religious people, Belief Without Borders is like a whole book based on interviews of people who identify themselves as spiritual but not religious. So I would say it's a very valuable book because you really hear the voices, and you will hear all these voices around. Those three features I mentioned here are three features that Mercadante outlines in her book as being, I would say, the central in the movement. I'm going to move to another part of the presentation, and this part I will do in two segments. We'll go for a little bit, and then we'll have like a break in which we'll have like a little of dialogue. There is questions, and then we'll go for the second part, more focus on other issues, and then we'll have another time for sharing and dialogue. So I already mentioned about those possible distortions. We could see value and merit in having our own spiritual authority, but when we have our own spiritual authority and we're very clear about that, there's also more dangers of spiritual bypassing, because I know what's truth for me, I know my truth. So we'll go into spiritual bypass in a moment. So there's maybe more chances, more lottery numbers that I may be kind of like avoiding psychological issues because I have my truth and so forth. And that kind of individualism, that it can also be inflated and become kind of narcissism, my individual experience, my experience is the truth, and kind of like, yeah, and if it's a truth that other people don't understand, worse for them because I'm the one who knows better, right? That kind of a manifestation. We'll go into spiritual narcissism as a depth in the second part of this talk. And that kind of like pluralism and universalism, like that has like a very noble intention, of course, of embracing a plurality and trying to find unity. Very often, as you will see in the second part of my presentation, it kind of falls into this kind of sectarian form of narcissism. They believe that one particular tradition or my own choice or my own path is kind of somehow the superior truth. And in addition to this, also, this is kind of complicated, all these potential distortions, by the fact that many spiritual but not religious people they tend more than other, let's say, only religious people to go through spiritual emergencies and spiritual emergencies challenges that we're gonna see in a moment. Um, in some ways, some people who were like secular or even atheistic, sometimes they do have like some kind of a spiritual emergency. They have a near-death experience, and then under their worldview cannot really understand that, and they went to a kind of a crisis, or they have other types of like they go to an ayahuasca ceremony, and then their worldview gets shattered, and they get into another crisis. So. So I'm gonna just have a quick look at the spiritual emergencies. As I mentioned, there are kind of crises in which a spiritual process or a process of growth becomes kind of overwhelming for people. It's like people going to the realms of mystical or spiritual experience, visionary realms sometimes with entheogen psychedelics, and then they go into confusion. They cannot integrate them well into their lives, into their jobs, into their relationships. This is a term that was formed, Spiritual Energy Network. And the term was coined by Christina Grof, the founder, some of the founders of the transpersonal psychology movement. So this is one vision is like, wow, I'm not sure if I'm reaching enlightenment or I'm going totally nuts, And many people should, or maybe all of us at some point in our development have gone something like this. Or like this, what people think a spiritual awakening is versus what it actually is, People think spiritual awakening is like something that is always wonderful and full of peace and joy and breakthrough, and you're just amazing, feeling amazing. But for many people who went through a spiritual awakening, it brings a lot of psychological disturbance, like the sense of I'm just going crazy, especially when they don't have like a container, like a kind of like a cultural religious matrix or a spiritual matrix that is contained in their experience. This is also what happens with this kind of individualism, do-it-yourself spirituality. You don't have the kind of support systems that people would have either in indigenous traditions and contemplative traditions. You'd have like their teachers and teachings and groups and everything. So something important here to understand a spiritual emergence is to distinguish very clearly between two elements of the ego system. This comes from object relations theory, from psychological theory, The representational, that's kind of like the image I have of myself, who I think I am, could be also inflated or not. And also the identification with such an egoic image I have of myself. And it kind of leads into this kind of more selfish or narcissistic I, me, mine approach to life, right? But there's also the functional dimension of the egoic system that give us like the sense of what is real. It helps us to integrate experiences, especially challenging experiences, and also help us to be like to functional work, to socially function in the world in a healthy way, in a productive way, like and so forth. So clearly, like there's a lot of confusion sometimes because the traditions tell you like, oh, you need to overcome your ego. Well, many of the psychological traditions, from psychoanalysis to depth psychology, object relations, that tell you, no, you need to strengthen your ego. Of course, they're talking about different parts of the egoic system. Of course, you need to let go gradually in the spiritual path of that kind of like narrow identification with a kind of self-image of myself that normally is quite full of self-delusion. But also you need to strengthen your sense of who you are, like spiritual individuation. As Jack Engler, a very important transpersonal psychologist, said, you have to be somebody before you can be nobody. You have to work, you have to be a strong functional ego before you can let go of that kind of representations, that self-images, because if you go too quickly, and that's what some of those spiritual experiences that lead people to crisis do, you go too quickly without having strengthened your ego, you haven't become like a strong individuated person, and then you are without self-images, your self-images kind of shatter and stuff. You can go into a deep crisis of identity, a kind of sense of a deficient emptiness, so to speak, within your life. The Sufis also say something very similar. The Sufi spiritual tradition, like the mystical branch of Islam, surrender your ego to God, but make sure it's a strong one. They will even say like things like God doesn't like weak egos. It's gonna destroy you. It's gonna destroy you. It's gonna annihilate you, not in a positive way. um, so, and this is why Brian Corright, like also a colleague from CIS, called wonderful book, Psychotherapy and Spirit, another quick definition, a spiritual emergency. The self becomes disorganized and overwhelmed by an infusion of spiritual energies or new realms of experiences which it is not yet able to integrate. That's the key thing, the integration. The functional ego is not strongly forced to able to integrate all those experiences. And I have to say that even a strong integrated ego, but that has been all her life or his life indoctrinated or like has embraced a completely materialistic worldview and a scientific in a narrow sense, like even those people can go through some kind of crisis, but normally the crisis will not be so strong if that kind of functional part of ourselves has been kind of like well developed through life. So spiritual emergency or psychosis, as you saw in the slides before, like some of the people who are going through spiritual emergencies, they think they're going nuts, they think they're going crazy. So how to differentiate that also in clinical practice? The first thing is to understand is that there is no white or black. There could be some purely religious problems, like a crisis of faith, challenges that meditation people have, and they deal with the meditation teachers, And also there can be mental disorders with a religious or spiritual content, right? There is many schizophrenic people who have a messiah complex, right? Like Ram Dass, brother, right? Famously, so like, what's going on, Ram Dass? You say you are God and you are being venerated, and I say I'm God, and I'm put into a psychiatric asylum, and Ram Dass famously responded, well, it's because I say I'm God and everybody is God, and you say you are the only one, the Messiah complex. You are the only one. We are the only true incarnation of Christ, right? And also religious or spiritual problems concurrent with a mental disorder. For example, one have like a OCD, like a talk, an excessive ritual behavior, and then finally, the spiritual emergency is a religious or spiritual problem, but is not attributable to a mental disorder. That's the key distinction. It's triggered after a near-death experience, an out-of-body experience, a mystical experience, psychedelic experiences, and people are like super confused, organized, what's going on with me? And sometimes it's not just the experience, like it goes for weeks, for months. People have flashbacks, people have like ramifications in their personal, relational, professional life. They're not doing well. How to distinguish them? These are like some 4 key criteria, research-based, of course. Normally with psychotic processes, there is a prior history of mental disorder. If you start like talking with their prior psychologist or their history or their family, people will tell, well, there was something off with them, or they already had like some breaks in the past and so forth. Normally people who go through spiritual emergencies, they have no history of mental disorders. They were like super healthy, super normal. Maybe they had like some kind of like interest in spirituality or in the occult, and but they were not mentally challenged in their lives, or they don't have that recollection at least. And psychotic processes normally develops over time. Again, like when you treat like some people with psychosis disorders, like there's a history. Again, that connects with the first criteria. There's something happened in the adolescent. There was another crisis here. Something that develops over time. When a spiritual emergency is normally precipitated by one single event. Sometimes, like some like substance use, for example. Interestingly, and though no one really knows why, psychotic processes lead to more auditory hallucinations. People hear voices within their head, sometimes very scary voices. Psychotic processes could be very scary and about having to kill themselves or to even to kill others or things like that. No, or you're the Messiah or you're the only one who can save humanity and so forth. In spiritual emergencies, there's less of these auditory hallucinations, although they can happen, and people have more visual hallucinations. And then finally, whenever you see someone who is like with more psychotic disorder, their cognition is very disorganized. It's very fragmented. It's harder to follow a conversation. It's harder to tell them, for example, with someone in a spiritual emergency, you can have a conversation in general, no, unless it's like in a peak with them it's like some containment and support. You can have a conversation and you can tell them, listen, there is what's happening to you. It's called a spiritual emergency, and there is literature about it, and people understand it. There's a rational and potential rational understanding of what's happening to them. Cultural sensitivity is very important here. No, they say, hey, when you talk to God, it's called prayer, but when he talks back, it's schizophrenia. It's like, wow. In many cultures, many people hear voices of God in their heads. In India and many other places, I have some students doing publishing papers in major like psychosis mainstream journals to bring in all this perspective here. So how to support spiritual emergencies? The most important is to have this non-pathological framework to understand what's happening, to reduce a fear of going crazy. And this is super important together with Bible therapy and spiritual emergencies. People think, I'm going crazy, what's going on? And then you explain them like in a quiet voice, in a quiet way, like, no, I don't think that's happening to you. What's happening to you is something called a spiritual emergency. There is these books I can recommend, read about them, and let's talk again, And normally already people start kind of more, okay, I'm not going crazy. I'm not into a psychotic break, And then you can also do any kind of like grounding practices, like certain forms of diet, grounding practices, especially exercise. Vigorous exercise can help. Gardening, contact with nature can also be very, very well, And the sensitive use of entheogens and pathogens. Normally, I would say in lower dosages, at least at the beginning, because you don't want to expand what's happening, but it can also be helpful at times. So I'm going to move to spiritual bypass before we have our first break. And spiritual bypass was a term coined by my old friend and colleague, John Wellgood. I say old because he passed away a number of years ago. It's the tendency to use spiritual ideas, practices to avoid, sidestep, facing unresolved emotional issues, sacral wounds, and unfinished developmental tasks. Some examples. Someone going through celibacy to hide sexual repletion, blocks, fears, and trauma. That happened to me when I was like 18 or 17, 18. I had some sexual blocks and I was feeling drawn to sexual celibacy. I even have had a sense of false sense of almost superiority because I was doing something very, very spiritual that other people were not doing, or you can have like what I call chronic equanimity to avoid the healthy expression of anger. There is certain situations in life when you face injustice, when you face something like really like someone who did something really to you that is completely out of place, very aggressive to you. There are different personal ways to deal with that, of course. And in some traditions, like in Buddhism, they told the expression of anger is always a bad thing, like Shantideva and so forth, But I think like more contemporary transpersonal approaches to anger, they also like and psychological. They see value in the healthy expression of anger, the mindful expression of anger. Many people are kind of like really repressing anger with very bad consequences for their relational and personal life. Going into the doctrine of non-attachment or detachment to avoid intimacy. That's very common in couples. I have an old friend too, Mariana Kaplan, who wrote this chapter called Zen Boyfriends, became like a theater play. And it was based on her own experiences, being connected to spiritual fellows, and then how in the mornings, in her experience, of course, the guys would avoid intimacy by going into meditation practice, and they would do all these spiritual maneuvers, often to avoid real intimacy with her. Who knows what happened there, but that certainly can happen. And also like the use of the entheogenic of the psychedelic path, to really go there to fight an addiction to experiential highs. Okay. And this leads also to a phenomenon called I've called the collectionism of experiences. Like people who are going through I'm going to a ayahuasca ceremony once a week or twice a month, and for a long time, and there is almost no time for integration and digestion. It's like more. That's kind of the leitmotif of this energy, I want more experiences. Why? Because there's no integration at times, and they go back to their everyday lives, and all the patterns and neuroses come back, and they think if I get enough number of experiences, it's kind of addictive quality, I'll be fine, And now we know it's not so much about that, it's about the integration, especially what counts for transforming one's life. To finish this part of the presentation, I'm going to put you on this video of Jeff Foster, a meta-modern spiritual teacher that I like quite a lot. And it's about a kind of spiritual bypass having to do with non-duality teachings that are very kind of like mainstream and very, very widespread, especially about the spiritual but not religious movement. And you may see where some of this kind of dialogue resonates with some perhaps dialogues you have had with some friends, or maybe some of us fell into this at some point. I'm going to put the video, leave it for a few minutes, and I'll take advantage of doing this. Oh, excuse me. Oops. I'll take advantage of doing this to go a second to do a little bathroom break myself, because I have like a bladder, irritated bladder condition that if I drink water, I need to go to the bathroom. So I'm going to put this video for a few minutes and I'll be back in a second. Oh, there you go.
Do you see it? What a beautiful tree.
Stop right there. There is no beauty. Both tree and beauty are merely concepts appearing in space-like, ever-present awareness. Don't settle for mere concepts. Don't buy into the ignorance of the mind. End seeking once and for all, here and now. All words are merely pointers. Discard the pointers.
Yeah, of course. I get that. I was just saying.
Stop. There is no I to get anything. And nothing to get. And no saying.
Yes, I know. I see that.
Who sees that? What is there to see? Who sees what? There is nobody there seeing. Ask yourself the question, who sees? There is only clear, space-like seeing with no person doing anything. There is no duality. There is only non-duality. Duality is an illusion. Only non-duality is real.
I was just saying.
Who will say? What is there to say? And to whom?
Alec, are you going to let me speak at all?
Who would let you speak?
Jesus, I knew you were going to say that. You've become so predictable since you got into this advanced stuff. Look, all I wanted to say is that the tree over there is lovely. And yes, I know that ultimately those are just concepts, and the way is not the thing, and there is no separate tree, blah, blah, blah. But can I just say that it's a beautiful tree? Am I allowed to say it? I mean, come on, it's beautiful. Don't you think it is?
No. There is nobody here who thinks. There is no beauty. Beauty is a concept. You are lost in a world of ignorance. You have not yet woken up to your true nature.
Wow. Okay. You seem pretty worked up about this.
No. There is nobody here getting worked up. Worked up is merely a conceptual overlay appearing in awareness. It is all simply your perception, a projection of your own ignorance. There is still the belief that you are a time-bound self.
Okay. Whatever. I give up. I just thought it was a nice tree and wanted to share something with you. I don't know. Just to share something. Something beautiful. That's all. No more, no less. If you don't like that, fine. I give up.
Who gives up? And when? You're referring to the past. There is no past. Only the eternal present. Only now.
Can I be honest with you? Since you, well, in your own words, recognize your true nature, all the joy seems to have gone out of you. I'm sure you've found some clarity in one way or another, but it's almost like you've lost the ability to, well, relate as a human being to me. You always seem to feel the need to shoot everything and everyone down, even when they haven't actually asked for your help or advice. It's like you always need to play the teacher. You're trying to teach me when I don't need to be taught. You're playing the guru and it's getting tiresome.
That's what the seeker always says. But the seeker's ignorance must be destroyed with the machine gun of truth.
See? There you go again. I'm trying to talk to you in a down-to-earth, ordinary human way, just as a friend, not asking for help but sharing, and it's like just can't hear that anymore. What's happened to you?
There is no person here. Do away with this ignorance, that I'm a person, and that you are a person, and be free.
You're no fun anymore. There used to be a time when I could talk about the beauty of trees. We talked, and it was fun, enjoyable, and totally innocent. Now I feel like it's wrong. Like you see it as wrong. Like it's not allowed in your non-duality system. Like if I'm not using the same language as you, if I'm not saying the things in the same way as you do, you get on your high horse and start preaching. And get angry. And nobody enjoys being around an angry preacher. And even worse, an angry preacher who then denies that they are angry and that they are preaching.
Ah, your feelings are hurt. Poor little hurt ego. A sure sign you are stuck in ignorance. If, like me, you had completely recognized your true nature, there would be no hurt. Getting hurt is a sign of weakness, which is ego. Stop being a baby. Drop the hurt little ego and see. Be fearless like me. Stop complaining. Don't take it all so personally. Remember, my pointers are impersonal.
I'm not saying my ego is hurt. I'm not saying I'm seeking. I'm not saying I need a teacher. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm saying that you seem joyous and angry to me these days. It's like you feel the need to teach me all the time, when I haven't asked for a teacher and I don't need one. I was just saying that it's a beautiful tree. It's such a simple thing, and you can't seem to hear it anymore. What's happened to you? I thought seeing your true nature was supposed to bring freedom and simplicity. But it seems that you're angrier and more arrogant than ever. Can you hear what I'm saying? As a friend to a friend, can you hear it?
Nobody hears. There is nothing to hear.
Good grief. It's a beautiful tree. So simple. Can you not hear it anymore?
Nobody hears. Nobody's here. Nobody. Nothing. No one.
I know. You say that about 10,000 times a day. Nobody here. Pure awareness. Everything's a concept. The illusion of duality. I get it. I see this non-duality thing. I see the truth in those pointers. I see that I am totally free and unbound. I see the miracle of life. But I never, ever feel the need to talk about it. I never feel the need to convert anyone. I never feel the need to teach or preach. I feel free to just live an ordinary life. I feel so free that I even feel free to say, it's a beautiful tree. Yes, for me, that's part of the freedom. The freedom to say ordinary things in an ordinary way. The freedom to use words like I, and, me, and, tree. The freedom to talk about time and space, although in an ultimate sense they are only concepts. Still, there cannot be anything wrong with saying those words. And there cannot be anything wrong with anything. And there? Yes, I get it. I really do. There is nobody here. There's no tree and no beauty. In an absolute sense, I get IT, but still, IT is a beautiful tree. And could be as true as its opposite. In the end, can't, tree, and not tree be equal?
If you say I get it, there is the assumption that there is somebody there who gets it.
You know what? I'm leaving. I hate to say it, but you're no fun to be around anymore. You used to laugh. You used to take things lightly. You used to enjoy walking in nature. We used to enjoy walking in nature together, looking at these trees, chatting like equals. It never used to be a problem. These days, it feels like a problem when you're around. I don't feel that we're equals anymore. It's like you see everybody as beneath you. You see everybody as desperate seekers, while you are the only one who is free. Can't you see that's a huge projection on your part?
There is no projection, only space-like awareness. Anything you say is your projection.
Okay, goodbye. Sorry, but I'm going. Enjoy your space like awareness. On your own.
Fine. Fine. Walk off. See if I care. Who cares? Who cares? There's nobody here who cares. See how carefree I am. Nobody cares. Nothing and nobody to care about. It's all your projection. Your suffering is your problem, not mine. There are no problems in this eternal presence. You are still lost in separateness. I can't help you, but there is no suffering here. Only few will hear this message. Most people will walk away. You're not the only one. Many others have walked away too. This will never ever be a popular message. I'm here to destroy your seeking, not to comfort you. From the beginning of time, only few have truly heard this. People are simply not ready to confront their true nature. All those egos run a mile when confronted with my clarity. They are all afraid of this teaching. Afraid to hear the truth. Afraid to no longer be joyless, lonely seekers. Afraid to let go of all their concepts and come to deep permanent rest in spacious awareness. Afraid to be free and peaceful, like me. Afraid of my brutal, uncompromising love. My goodness, what a beautiful truth.
Okay, so we're gonna have a little break from the presentation. And I put here some questions as potential questions to engage, but are you able to bracket your spiritual beliefs in your clinical practice? What have you found most helpful dealing with spiritual emergencies in your own personal and professional experience? What challenges have you had dealing with spiritual bypassing in professional or personal life? There are simply possibilities, but you can also engage this part of the presentation with questions, comments, sharing things about your own personal or professional life that are kind of relevant. And maybe let me just see when I put the whole. Okay, let's see. Very good. So I can see everybody. Okay. Okay. Okay, so we have also Joanna who joined us a bit later. Hi, Joanna. I couldn't say hi to you before. And then Bianca, I think it's Bianca there as well. Excellent, although we don't see her. Okay, so we can open for anyone has a question, of course, any unsolved thing, but also feel free to relate to these questions if you want, or just to engage the materials from your own personal professional experience. What's anyone would like to share something or ask something?
Well, hey, can I ask a question about
Yes.
the very beginning of the presentation? You spoke about religious and spiritual as binary oppositions. Can you speak briefly about them as potentially a spectrum and moving between the two and how they may inform one another?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was talking about the binary opposition between religion and spirituality in the way that the spiritual but not religious movement frames that kind of religion and spirituality. Like, religion is a bad thing, spirituality is a great thing, and all those kind of qualities. No, yeah, obviously, like on the one hand, like contemporary research, exactly they see that it's more fuzzy. It's more fuzzy. It's like no. And take for example, like this idea that religion is dogmatic and spirituality is like open-ended, not dogmatic. Well, I've met quite a number of people in my life connected to spiritual religious traditions, like monks, for example, Benedictine monks and Buddhist monks, who I experienced as some of the most open-minded people I've encountered in my life, and they were within a very clear religious tradition. Some of them, even within the religious traditions, have like somehow emancipated themselves from kind of even some of the doctrines from within. No, that's another thing. Like in many religious traditions, it's not monolithic. There is, of course, like always some spokespersons who tend to be more fundamentalist or more kind of like dogmatic, but there is tremendous variety within that. And on the other hand, the opposite also runs true, right? I'm sure that not only me, but some of you, I'm sure you have met some New Agers or spiritual but not religious people, or people who are doing a lot of ayahuasca ceremonies, perhaps in an unintegrated way, that they can become super dogmatic, super dogmatic about many things, right? Even dogmatic about that ayahuasca told them with complete certainty and absolute certainty that they are here with a special spiritual mission that no one else is here for, and they cannot even understand it. I've heard that quite a number of times in ayahuasca circles. So you see, like, you can deconstruct very easily that binary, and it's true. But I'm curious, Michael, because when we do the hands up about you say religious and spiritual. How is that for you? How is that? How do you consider yourself religious and spiritual? Like, what does that mean for you?
Hmm. I feel like it's a dance of moving in and out of the wisdom of the various traditions that I've been a part of. I still find that there's wisdom in things like the sacrament or particular Buddhist practices. So some of the practices, I feel free to engage those when I feel called to them or they may be useful for me. But other times, when I start to feel them being constrictive or less useful or getting in the way, I feel free to dance out of them, especially as there's this idea of this complete spiritual individualism, I think for me feels unwise. I think there's so much wisdom from other people, especially the traditions. And I do think that they are evolving and need to continue to evolve. So I think there's something that the spiritual can teach to these traditions. If they are to stay alive and survive, they need to be able to adapt and speak new languages. So I think that's kind of how I balance the two.
That's really great. That's a really great way to put it, because I tend to feel also, any kind of spiritual religious traditions, like it's kind of like always historically too. It grows, it evolves through a tension between a more orthodox core holding the tradition, and then a more heterodox or innovative, within the religious traditions. Okay, so it is that tension, that also helps on the one hand for the traditions to adapt themselves to new times, to embrace like new possibilities, that before perhaps were not allowed in other times, while at the same time kind of like, holding something together, not getting like disseminated into something that has no resemblance to that part religious traditions and their own core beliefs, So I think that's a really beautiful, it's a kind of dialectical tension, no, between yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, thank you. Siddharth.
I really love this map of this presentation. And one of the things that I think is so important in the conversation is about spiritual but not religious, and the spiritual but not religious distortions that you're alluding to, is the idea of the Sangha, or the congregation, or the community, or the container, and that there's this push towards individualism, and there are all these potential pitfalls. But what seems to be lacking from the religious orthodoxy are these well-founded containers, or the Dharma, the Sangha, Buddha, right? These are three essential elements that are in maintaining that movement towards an individual experience within a larger container or community.
Yeah, absolutely. You will see later in the second part of the presentation, we are going to be with some focus on spiritual narcissism, because that's one of the, I think, more common in this spiritual but not religious movement. And precisely, I will say that some of the antidotes, it is about relationships, it's about the Shanga, it's about like having the peer-to-peer relationships, and even spiritual mentors as well, and other people that they can do that kind of these checks and balances, that we all need. We all need at some point of our development. Perhaps always we need like some people to tell us when they perceive whether we're out of integrity, for example. And we all have blind spots, even monks, even enlightened people. Everybody has blind spots, and one of the great tragedies we are discussing this in a podcast not long ago with a couple of Spanish psychologists. It was a podcast on spiritual abuses, sexual and power abuses in spirituality and psychotherapy, very relevant today. And one of the conclusions is that, well, many of those spiritual gurus, or even ayahuasqueros, or teachers, yoga teachers, or lamas, including Tibetan lamas, they were in positions normally in which they didn't have like that kind of community of peers. They are like enthroned in this kind of upper. Everybody's they're just, and sometimes it's lack of time, perhaps. They are super busy with their schools. But it sounds super important that especially the more advanced, also these practitioners they continue having like this kind of like of course, in some traditions they do have that, like in Zen, in Zen, different monks they have, and they gather but in many other places, especially, I would say that it's like some kind of like I wouldn't generalize it 100%, but there is like a huge correlation between spiritual scandals or problems in communities, and when you have charismatic teachers that they don't have a community of peers, they don't have their own Shanga, as you say, the Sangha is between equals, and I think that's a very important point.
Yeah, it also seems sort of ironic that many of the spiritual but not religious traditions are returning to the body, and they're returning to the body as authority, this sort of individual knowing, this internal teacher, this internal wisdom. So they're a response to being disembodied by traditional religious institutions, by putting that always outside. So they're reclaiming this, but at the same time, we live in a society, or a globalist world, where we are disembodied from the body politic. So we're all off on our own adventures. And we're searching in many ways for narratives or grand structures or containers in which we can hold our own individual experiences within a community context.
Exactly, completely agree. Thank you. Anyone else would like to share something or add something, or?
I would. Can you hear me?
Please. Yes, perfectly.
So my career has mainly focused on families and children.
Okay.
And my last job was at a psychiatric unit for adolescent girls.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to comment on is, and I think maybe you can help me sort this out a little bit, the spiritual emergencies for the girls just popped up sometimes. And I'm talking about really indigenous people and Native Americans. And,
Okay.
you know, part of it was my fault in not really understanding their culture. Of course, it's hard to know everything about everything, right?
Yes.
But, you know, in teaching in psychiatric care, especially residential, everything's fast forward, you know, and it's skill building. So what I want to share is one of the we're required to do evidence-based treatment. So I was presenting on DBT in conflict resolution, and I don't know if you all know any of this, but one of the skill sets is in conflict resolution is connecting that with an animal so that kids or parents can connect with the behavior of an animal as well as the concept of resolving conflict. So I'm sorry if I'm getting wordy, but the owl is really, if you think about an owl, how wise it is, and, you know, how perceptive and sharp their eyes are, and really intelligent and successful in getting what they need in life. And so one of the things that kept coming up was that the owl has a very different meaning in for indigenous people, especially the ones that I worked with. And so it was offensive to think about the concept of being like an owl, because it was like a death, you know, death was coming, or a loss or catastrophe. So that was, I think that was like a spiritual bypassing, and also, you know, a spiritual emergency. And so unbeknownst to me, I created a crisis, so to speak. So I guess my point is understanding the culture is very important. However, you don't always know because there's not a lot of time. But anyway, I just wanted to share that part. And it's just hard to know everything about everything in the therapeutic world, especially when you're on fast forward to move things through quickly and teach skills. So I don't know if that's helpful for anybody, but that's one of the things I thought about through this was, you know, the trying to meet, of course, and teach something that's useful and skill sets.
Yes. No, that's super helpful, Joanna. And I mean, I agree with you. Like, of course, you're not to blame for that not knowing about that culture. You know, like you cannot know everything. But it is like I would say it's like a learning experience, right? You learn something that's super important, and that's important. So it's very likely that if you find yourself working with another population of, say, of a different tribe or a different spiritual population, but thanks to that experience, you'll say, I'm going to do my homework here because I can fuck it up. I'm willingly, with my best intentions, I can fuck it up in a way. And at the same time, I would say that sometimes when we apparently fuck things up, you know, we're triggering sometimes processes that, you know, it was triggering a spiritual emergency in her that perhaps was not being triggered, but maybe it catalyzed something that had to come out at some point in her life, you know. Normally with the spiritual emergencies, there is something like that, you know, even though the trigger was like, you could consider like a better way to get triggered. Still, the process that the person, that's the most important, like focus on the process and supporting this person on the process, no, once that has been triggered, no. But yes, culture, sensibility is super important, of course, super important. Thanks so much, Joanna.
Sure.
Maybe one more person before we continue. Anyone else at some point? If not, we'll just go for the second part and we'll have plenty of time. Second part, we're gonna go much deeper into some more nitty-gritty issues. Ready? Okay, let's go for it. And we'll also show like a funny video, no worries. Let's see. Very good. So we're going to the spiritual narcissist. And I'm bringing this because, again, as we're talking, like, this also connects with like Cedar and other people's input, like, it's so much more greater chances, you know, than when we're into these more individualistic pathways without getting the support and the challenges and the checks and balances from the Shanghai teachers that we can get into our own trip, you know, and this is something that as therapists, we need to be aware of, that some of the people who may come to us with kind of like spiritual concerns and some of them, they may even come to boast about their spiritual experiences and to get validation from a professional. That's something that happens quite commonly. So there is two types of spiritual narcissism, like psychological and sectarian. We're going to focus on the psychological first, no? This is the most commonly known, you know, ego inflation, to be inflated, self-absorption, being completely like self-wrapped into your own spiritual path, to the extent that you start kind of like not functioning well in your relationship, or as a father or a mother, and what I mentioned before, the collections of experiences, you know. I've had like some friends telling me like, wow, well, some people that I've known, like almost like they're in like social situation and the conversation goes into spirituality and then they jump quite quickly. I've done 465 ayahuasca experiences. It's almost like your spiritual credentials, no? So you start kind of like getting like, So it's a definition, as many others. There's a misuse of spiritual practice, energies, experiences to bolster self-centered ways of being. This is like a little quotation. I don't know, Christina Aguilera, I think, may not be a spiritual narcissist in a major way. I don't know her. You may even like her work, her songs, but she says something that reminded me a little of this. I'm not really religious, but very spiritual. I give money to this company that manufactures hearing aids on a regular basis. Great. More people should really hear me saying, I have a gift from God. Would be true. Would be true. But something important is to differentiate this from the narcissistic personality disorder. This is like the 9 symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder. But it's important to really be aware is that you have to have at least 5 of these to be diagnosed as having narcissistic disorder. So it's not so easy. I mean, many of us may have 1 or 2 or 3. You have to have 5 of those, no? Self-importance, fantasies of infinite success, the idea I'm extraordinary, I'm exceptional, desiring admiration, sense of entitlement, oppressive behavior, no empathy, that's an important one, resentment of others because they think they're resentful of you, and a display, of course, egotistical, conceited behaviors or attitudes. And something important here too, that this is very different from the normal, or let's say fundamental narcissism that we all have. We all have a part of a narcissistic, we all have moments in our lives in which, for example, like, we wish for admiration, or we all have moments of being a bit more selfish, or self-referential conversations, or we'll have moments in which we have like some kind of like inflated self-image about ourselves. That's kind of normal. Doesn't mean that it's optimal. According to some authors who have really worked deeply into narcissism, even that kind of fundamental narcissism of everyday life that everybody has could be uprooted in deep psycho-spiritual work. But still, that's kind of normal, and that's not pathological. It's not considered pathological. What is considered pathological, the difference is that that forms the structure of their personality. It's people who are consistently behaving in all these ways, in all social situations, in relations with others. It's just it's their structure of personality versus being some moments in our personal lives that we all can have a bit more narcissistic moments in our lives. And also it's important to differentiate between the narcissistic, the sociopath, and the psychopath, no? And because sometimes they can overlap. They can overlap, and that's when it's more challenging here, no? But one of the main distinctions here is like the complete psychopath, is kind of remorseless, It's like someone just wrote a book, a woman like called Psychopath, Memoirs of Psychopath, something like this, and this is really good. It's a mother, it's a businesswoman, is successful, has a family, and she wrote these memoirs, it's like, no, I like to manipulate people. I don't give a shit about people. I have no empathy for anyone and just go for my things, like zero guilt, while the sociopath that, could be like the guys, in neighborhoods, challenging neighborhoods, and they break into something, or they are violent, or things like this, or the end, and these people, they do have like guilt and remorse and things like this, And what brings them together, all these three, is this kind of egocentrism, charisma, the sense of confidence, and also this way to manipulate. And one of the most, and this is important also for counselors, because sometimes we may receive, like in our practice, like people who have been victims, like of charismatic teachers who were not only narcissists, but they were like a psychopathic narcissistic. These are the most dangerous ones, okay? I apologize because the slide is in Spanish, but basically I'll just mention the four main things. This is, I don't know who's Ricardo Ponce, I have no idea, but it's like charisma. These people who are super charismatics, or at least they show like a sense of like confidence, although normally it's a mask for, so it's like a double life, And then also they are super grandiose, they're searching for attention, idolatry, and so forth. But they also do something that is what is called love bombing. That's in English, and that's a way in which they hook their victims. At the beginning, they praise them, like they give them a lot of like positive reward, and attention, and even gifts and expensive gifts and things like this, and it's everything like moving towards like a way to hook them up and gain their trust in order to abuse them later, in order to abuse them either financially or verbally, emotionally, sexually, economically, and spiritually, and so forth. So these are the most dangerous characters. And when you just someone in your counseling practice have gone through an experience like this, it's you need to do a lot of like rebuilding work, repairing work in that person, because it's really profoundly damaged in many different ways. Some symptoms of spiritual narcissism: feeling or claiming to be spiritually special, right? That's one. I already mentioned that. Being oneself to be the reincarnation of superior being. Posting pictures of one spiritual practice in Instagram all the time, right? Declaring to others that you cannot possibly get me, because I'm in a higher state of consciousness, you just cannot get me. And any disagreement between us is because you cannot understand where I'm coming from. Okay, this is also typical. The need for admiration, and of course, hypersensitivity to criticism. Like that guy of the cartoon before also, no? The guy of the cartoon, when the other when the little fellow is like, well, I think you're being arrogant. It's like, no, it's all your ego, right? And the other little guy was trying to just simply reach human connection, a shared experience of the beautiful tree. And the other is like, no, that's like blah, 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 Boasting about the spiritual achievements, number of medicine ceremonies, and also imitating what a spiritual person looks and sounds like. I'm gonna put another little video that some of you may have already watched, but it's really funny. And this is from JP Sears, How to Be Ultra Spiritual. It's just 5 minutes, shorter than the other one.
You record? I'm JP Sears. I'm ultra spiritual, and I'm going to teach you how to be ultra spiritual today. First, what you need to understand is being ultra spiritual has nothing to do with actually being spiritual, because no one even knows what that actually is. Being ultra spiritual means you look spiritual. Practice competitive spirituality. Silently / passive aggressively, you're going to want to compare how spiritual other people are to yourself. Judging other people to be less spiritual than you makes you a better person. And that's exactly what makes you more spiritual. Hey, Kevin. See, just said that. You need to be using your intuition when you're actually thinking. In fact, you're going to want to announce this to people every chance you get, because false intuition isn't true intuition till you get other people to believe that your false claims are actually true. Hey, Deanna, my intuition just told me to give you a call. All right, I didn't see that you called me. Talk about it. You're going to want to integrate this into all your conversations. It'll seem meaningless to other people, because it is. But don't let that stop you. I love chi, I love prana, I love life force, I love auras, chakras, it's all vibration. Rebel against dogmatic religious terminology by dogmatically using spiritual. You'll want to keep your eyes closed extra tight on this one, so that you don't see that you're actually still subscribed to the exact same belief system that you're rebelling against, because now you're expressing the same concepts just with new words. Jesus, universe supports you. I'll send you white light. God will provide for you. The universe is abundant. It's all about getting into heaven. It's all about getting back to you. Hallelujah. Say the word namaste any chance you get. You need to stumble your way through mispronunciations of it and awkwardly using it in social situations where it doesn't actually fit. We'll call it intimate. We'll also call it intimate. If you're going to be ultra spiritual, then you need to believe that being a human being and having these things called human feelings has nothing to do with the spiritual experience. You're breaking up with me? You've been sleeping with my best friend. No, I'm not hurt. It's all part of the perfection. It is what it is. Use an exaggeratedly light tone of voice when you're talking to other ultra spiritual people. This is kind of like showing your ID to get into a bar. It proves that you just do copious amounts of yoga, even though you have no idea why aggressively stretching your body and wearing $100 Lululemon pants relates to your spirituality. This one's, feel this one's spirit. Oh, that's effective. It makes my hamstrings feel like they're tearing, which is helpful because I think hamstring is the French word for kundalini, which means this is making my kundalini more muscular. Reclassify all the ways you're irresponsible under the new heading, I'm a free spirit. Aggressively defend your position statement like you're an angel defending getting its wings cut off. Job? I don't have a job. I want to be free, brother. Can I borrow a couple bucks? Seriously, I haven't eaten for like 3 days. Please be my abundance, man. In here, they say that if you subscribe to JP's YouTube channel, you'll become fully. So you might. I'm JP Sears. I'm
Thank you. So anyway, that's a bit of humor, but unfortunately, there is a lot of that going on that we all have experienced. I have another friend, I couldn't find the video, had a great video that monologue on what she called e-goddesses, like ego goddesses, you know, that is quite hilarious. If I find it, I'll try to send it to see if Charles can share it with you. So all this connects with like, you know, in Sufism, there is something that came across once that they call there is the three different types of saints, you know. There's the master that knows that he's a saint and God knows it too, okay? There is the innocent saint, he doesn't know he's a saint, but God knows it. And then there is the one that knows that it's a saint, but God is not so sure about it. And this is probably the what we're calling here the narcissistic, the spiritual narcissistic people. So how, let's go to more serious matters how. Now, how to actually work with spiritual narcissism, you know, in the counseling practice, you know. Something important is to establish very clear boundaries, physical, emotional, time communication, like and professional distance. Narcissistic people can really be kind of like a very invasive, and they are going to test you. They're going to try to manipulate you. That's what they do. They're going to try to get closer to you. They even try to get together with you outside or call you in the moments in which you are saying that you cannot be called or try to contact you. Strong boundaries, and there should be consequences when they break their boundaries. They need to get the picture, you know. And you know, also super crucial in a gentle, skillful way, whenever you see narcissistic people making some grandiose statements about their spiritual status, it's important to really foster like the acknowledgement of what they are doing, like mirroring that. Wow, you are saying that you are such and such in that way. Wow, what do you mean by that? And something super important is to avoid spiritual debates. A lot of spiritual narcissists in the counseling practice, they are going to try to engage you in intellectual spiritual debates about spiritual truths, about doctrines, about all that. They completely cut that and always go bring the focus on the psychological and relational impact of their behaviors on others, you know. That should be like every time they go into like a spiritual mambo jumbo, bring them back to, okay, but let's talk about your relationships. How are they impacted by who you are and so forth, you know? Interrupt that tend to monopolize the conversation and therefore avoid facing emotional wounding and deep psychological issues. That's another strategy. The narcissistic people, they use it in social settings, of course, monopolizing conversations, but also they will use it in the counseling practice to also try to avoid being confronted and looking deep down. And also super important to explore the love wound. Behind narcissists, there is always a love wound, a trauma. Could be a trauma by omission, you know, omission of love in certain key developmental stages. Could be the other way around, like the child was always put in the pedestal child, you know, and gets like this sense of entitlement in life, you know. And of course, super important to invite the sharing of and deeply listen, but deeply listen, this is crucial, to their childhood traumatic experiences whenever you reach that point in which they finally share them, and that can take sessions and sessions and sessions. Also, it's important to skillfully, gently mirror contradictions between narcissistic attitudes and spiritual values such as humility. Wow, you're saying all these things. You sound like these kind of grandiose statements. But what about humility? How do you relate to humility? It's kind of spiritual value held by most spiritual traditions and so forth. And something super important when you go a bit deeper in the process is to appeal to their deeper identity. Who are you? Who could you be if you free yourself from this kind of like egoic idolatry? And of course, you don't say those words to them. If you free yourself from this self-preoccupation, this kind of self-referential conversation, this kind of focus on you, what is your deeper identity beyond that kind of again, representational self-image, of inflated self-image, no? Who are you? And two other things that also are helpful strategies, especially when other things fail. One of them is to invite them to survey their closest connections, even family members, closer friends, although of course as narcissistic people sometimes they have friends, but like more pseudo friendships, but anyway, whoever they consider to be their closest connections, about how they feel about their spiritual status, achievements, how they feel around them when they are speaking all about their spirituality and all these things that they have achieved, that's important because they can hear it from you as a therapist. Maybe they will hear it from someone else, but when they hear it from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, I mean, that has a different power, a different impact. And of course, also education. This about education, many narcissists in general and spiritual narcissists are highly intelligent people, and that's why they can be so manipulative. Okay, highly intelligent. So you can also appeal to that and point to them some key books in which, and movies, for example. I'm a big fan of cinema therapy and bibliotherapy. Some key books so that they can really understand rationally, intellectually, some of the things that they can maybe see themselves identified there, mirrored there, no? Of course, the classic book of Trungpa, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialists, the source of all this kind of line of thinking. And I would say Hamid Alma's The Point of Existence, I would say is the most sophisticated book about the transformation of narcissism in the spiritual path. And if they speak Spanish, also would recommend the book by Maribel Rodriguez, Más Allá, Beyond Spiritual Narcissism. And then also movies, there's this great movie, it's an old movie by Luis Buñuel. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Luis Buñuel, the famous Mexican director, kind of surrealist, a little, and also a strong critic of society, of the bourgeois, of religion, and so forth. Great movies. And this is a less known movie called El, He. And it's a whole movie, is hilarious, about this guy who is the most narcissistic dude that you can ever encounter, no? I mean, at some point his wife confronts him like super fearful. It's like, right, don't you think you're a little arrogant, my love? And it's like, or a little pride. It's like, what are you saying? I'm the most humble person in the world, right? So sometimes doing some of this kind of bibliocinema therapy, some people, they can get some connections here that can be really helpful in the process of therapy. And also, as I mentioned before, relationships, like survey your intimate connections, there's nothing like relationships to help us to see that perhaps we are not so enlightened as we thought we would be. This is Ram Dass, out of all people, saying, based on his own experience of Thanksgiving with his family after he came back from India, I think, if you think you are enlightened, go and spend Thanksgiving with the family. All your shit is going to come together, all your neuroses, all your things, And another, also for teachers, if you want to know how truly enlightened your teacher, ask his wife, ask his husband, right? So that speaks to that dimension. This slide, I'm going to spend a little time here because I think it's very important. It's a bit deeper, psychospiritually. How to work with the narcissistic one with clients. No, I think one important way to start is when the person has minimally recognized that he has a narcissistic wound, and that could take a lot of time if it happens. But if the person has been able to go there, okay. One first thing is to really tell them, this is normal. We all have some kind of narcissistic wound. Nobody has perfect primary caregivers that would mirror essential beings who all have holes within us. We try to fill up with this kind of narcissistic displays or looking for admiration or validation. But then gradually, but persistently, inviting to going in, to feel in, to touch that narcissistic emptiness, that lies behind all those displays, all those need for admiration, all those sensitive to criticism, to try to take them little by little to a place of vulnerability and heart. And And this can take sometimes different number of sessions, you know, in which if you are consistent and bring them together, and this could be even with guided meditations to ask them to close their eyes and go deep into feeling the heart and even remembering like childhood experiences, perhaps of trauma or being left down or not being affirmed by who they were, or being loved by their performance, not by who they really were, or things like this, you know. Eventually, at some point, that shell starts dissolving. And with that kind of like identification with that sense of identity inflated, they start kind of like vanishing, start kind of dissolving, and people can go to a period or maybe a session or several sessions of experiencing really emptiness, a sense of emptiness within, even terror and shame. That is a very delicate part of the process. And the key here is to consistently offer loving kindness and empathy, like so that they can really like more safely go, you know, of that kind of concept, that construction of who they are, and eventually like allow the emergence of something more real, something a deeper kind of selfhood can emerge if the people allow themselves to be accompanied through this process. And in that way, that kind of emptiness that they experience, that was experienced normally as a very deficient emptiness, an emptiness this heavy, it's dark, it's bad, I don't want it, you know, I don't want this, you know. It can gradually move to a more peaceful emptiness that is more light, is more luminous, you know, is full of presence, you know, as well. Before I move to our last part of our presentation, and there is this consideration that I found kind of interesting. I brought it in this context. There were some people saying, well, if God is all and loves all, wouldn't this make him a cosmic narcissist, right? He's loving himself in all or something like that. God, the cosmic narcissist, there is even some books around this, you know. This is another iteration of this, no? The craving to be praised, so just a narcissistic, insecure deity who can be manipulated and modified by flattery. Are we dealing with a case of colossal cosmic narcissism? Interesting consideration. Maybe we can later put our teeth on together. So I'm going to go to the other part of narcissism, just moving further. It's the sectarian spiritual narcissism, and this the deep-seated belief in the superiority of my path, my choice, or my psychedelic medicine. You know, I heard people, oh, ayahuasca is the one, or no, mushroom is the one. Is well, who knows, no? So even though, as we have seen before, like spiritual but not religious people, they claim to be pluralistic in many ways, you know, still very often, ultimately, as it came out before, they do have certain beliefs, you know, that they hold precious and they feel superior for holding those beliefs, you know. And this leads to this kind of superiority complex that some of our videos humorously brought, and a sense of condescendence towards other people, and even a spiritual violence with people, you know. It's important to understand that sectarian narcissism has nothing to do with psychological narcissism. The Dalai, I make this example in many of my presentations. The Dalai Lama probably is one of the paragons of humility, open-mindedness, like the real article, like there's nothing. He would like rank very, very low in the narcissistic personal inventory using psychology, right? Very low, if anything, no? But still, he does believe that he's not only the Buddhist religion, but his own school of Gelugpa school of Tibetan Buddhism is the only one that understands really the practice of emptiness and the notion of emptiness, and the only one that can achieve full, complete liberation. So if someone like the Dalai Lama can fall in this kind of sectarian spiritual narcissism, we need to be very compassionate with both ourselves when we have perhaps fallen into that, and also to others and our clients. So this is the contradiction I was speaking before, no? The SBNR, the movement, the spiritual but not religious people, they claim to be pluralistic, syncretic, universal, but at the same time they're monistic, or they fall into the non-dual, or they reject a personal God, and they are things that belong to particular traditions. This is why many of these spiritual but not religious, they go into this kind of metaphors. Well, all the spiritual paths lead to the same peak, or their rivers lead to the same ocean, but whenever they define the ocean or the peak, they say, well, it's non-duality or it's pure consciousness. They define that goal in terms of their preferred tradition. So it's kind of a way to hide that kind of sectarianism. Or with this idea that, well, all traditions are different in the external manifestation, but when you go deep down into the mystical core, the esoteric core, they become one, right? They become, but that's in comparative mysticism has been seen that that's not the case. These are like some depictions of some of the ultimate visions of certain traditions, completely different. Black Elk of like the emptiness in Zen, or the Kabbalah or Dallas and so forth. Or this kind of other vision, like, the traditions are like the blind men touching different parts of the same elephant, the elephant being a spiritual reality or the mystery or God, So therefore, but we're all worshiping the same thing that could be. But the problem also with this is like, there's always like some tradition, some people, well, but my tradition has more greater parts of the elephant, or has like a perspective of the elephant that is more accurate, and so forth. So you go into these traps, or the isolation of like something like non-duality, for example, or of consciousness as a universal, a universal goal for all traditions. And that's problematic. Of course, there is like universals of the human conditions. I'm very confident that we all as human beings can access a state of pure consciousness. Consciousness without thoughts is possible with training or with certain technologies of consciousness. But the thing is, like, different traditions would value differently this state. For some traditions would be the ultimate state, like full liberation, going to pure consciousness, that kind of witness, like Atman Brahma or Kaivalyam in Samkhya Yoga. But for the traditions, for Christians, for example, that particular experience and described in these exact terms was not considered ultimate liberation, was considered a preparatory step of soul purification before an encounter, a dualistic encounter with a personal and loving God. And then there's this kind of hierarchies that many traditions say, well, all the traditions that can be arranged in a hierarchy of greater and greater understanding and realization. And of course, all the different authors, historical and modern, they would put their own preferred traditions at the top, like modern Christian hierarchies, theistics in the top, monistic nature, even transpersonal philosophers like Ken Wilber, like non-dualities here in the top. So it's completely arbitrary, as you can see, it's very arbitrary in those kind of rankings. So when I encounter people in my practice, with this kind of sectarian, or sometimes in everyday life, friends, I have friends who they think like, well, my teacher and this kind of teaching is just universal and is the ultimate teaching for all, I try to humbly go into a more pedagogical approach. It's like, try to educate, not in a condescending way, but try to educate about the tremendous religious diversity that we have in the world. There's different numbers. Some scholars say 2,000, others 10,000, but minimum from normally 3, 4, 5, 6,000 religions for sure. Most scholars would agree, and even within a single religion, there is tremendous diversity. Only Christianity has 46,000 different denominations, many of which are completely at odds about many Christian beliefs. So the picture like I will bring is like, well, maybe there's not just one mountain and one peak, but like in nature, many mountains and many peaks, and there could be overlap, but it could be also different pathways, to go to different states of liberation and perhaps different spiritual worlds. And I like the metaphor of the tree, you know, because I mean, we're part of life. There's all these divisions between culture and nature that today are being deconstructed. We're part of life, and why our human creations, like religions, cannot also, like in life, spread in different directions that can be overlapping, but and then that kind of like plurality is not something to try to shrink or to force a convergence, but to celebrate in many different ways. Like we celebrate our family trees, no, going into all these different branches and this diversity that it brings. Family members are similar to others, but are very unique also in their own ways, you know. So I would say that a healthy spiritual family fosters the spiritual individuation of its members versus imposing specific belief systems upon them. Like the tree of life, and it's a metaphor. Now there is other images and metaphors for life diversification, but the tree of life is still a very valid metaphor in contemporary biology and so forth. And who would like to see a kind of like that all that diversity of life would converge into a single macrobiological organism? What a lost, right? So all these visions that everything needs to converge into one single truth for everybody, perhaps we're missing something about how life and how the unfolding of this mystery, of creative mystery, is moving in a direction of greater diversification, perhaps in communion. This is an evolutionary tree of myth and religion. You have like a visual of the tremendous diversity of religious traditions, but even within religious traditions, there is a lot of super schools, you know. On the left is all the different branches in which original Buddhists branch out into all these different types of Buddhists, and even Tibetan Buddhists branch out in many other like super schools, right? And as I mentioned before, with the example of the Dalai Lama, they don't agree with each other about fundamental matters like the nature of emptiness, right? So we have all this diversity. This is something I ultimately I bring this image. You know, this is the world religions tree. Each one of those little threads is religions and the opening to other. It's tremendously reverse. I put here like a link. I think this PowerPoint will be available to you. It's a PDF probably. So because in this link by the archaeologists, the magazine The Archaeologists, you can actually explore, like using kind of magnifying zooms, all the different parts of this tree that is like tremendous, no? But when I look at this tree and I have had some friends who are like defending some of these kind of sectarian views of the spiritual truths, they humble. They's like, wow, who am I? I mean, who am I or my teacher or my tradition to really believe and claim that only us have the single superior truth or the only truth or the superior truth or the most enlightened path or the most in the face of this tremendous spiritual diversity of the world that is diversifying even more and more as we speak. Like they say that like 2 or 3 new religions are emerging in the world every single day, for example. So yeah, I would say let's embrace plurality and this diversity, but with discernment, and that's very important because plurality and diversity can also lead to this kind of like anything goes, this kind of spiritual anarchies, and that's something that connects with something important also when counseling the spiritual but not religious client. That is to have, I'll give some examples that you may also create your own, to really focus on practical, transformational. Healing matters, not so much doctrinal discussions. So these are some of the tests, like the synthesis test. To what extent you can ask your spiritual path, experiences you are having, is freeing your clients from narcissism, from selfishness, from self-centeredness, or no, they're becoming more self-absorbed into their spiritual path. And you have to say that there could be periods, in which we all need some kind of self-absorption, maybe like going to long retreats or going deeper into our practice, but when that becomes the modus operandi over years and years and years, to the extent, to the fact that there is problems in your relational and social life, job life, and so forth, unless you are a monk, of course, then that's something to discuss, to explore together with your clients. The dissociation test, to what extent a spiritual path and experience fostered your clients' integration of body, sexuality, heart, mind, and consciousness, or to what extent is creating different subpersonalities, like shadowy personalities, because there is repression, dissociations. Some people develop spiritually only from your heart up, heart, compassion, equanimity, states of consciousness, but they forget about the body, they forget about sexuality, and that also leads to problems, both personal and unfortunately interpersonal problems. When these problems are being suffered by gurus or spiritual teachers themselves, you have the perfect recipe for accusations, sexual scandals, accusation of sexual harassment or sexual abuse, and so forth. And also the eco-sociopolitical test, That's also important. This is more questionable because many of these values are very Western values. I'm talking in the context of Western culture here. To what extent a spiritual path experience also fosters the client's commitment to ecological balance, justice, political religious freedom, class, gender equality, fundamental human rights, and other things, and so forth. So I'm going to talk briefly before we move towards closure about this, because in this complex panorama that I'm here just outlining with all these different challenges that the spiritual but not religious people are facing, then you include psychedelics into the picture. And I would say that there is like a synergy between the movement and psychedelics. Why? Because on the one hand, many people who are atheistic or secular or that have nothing to do with religion, it was precisely through psychedelics, through our experience of psychedelics, either like recreational or going to a ceremony, that they really open to spirituality, to a sense of the sacred. And of course, while they were rejecting religion, they became SBNR. So psychedelics for many people was the entry into this identity of spiritual but not religious. But the other way around also is true, so many people who are into identify themselves as spiritual but not religious, psychedelics is very appealing. It's very appealing because psychedelics open to a diversity of spiritual experiences, not constrained by religious dogmas or religious strictures. Some people can have Buddhist experiences, Christian experiences, experiences that even no spiritual tradition has really talked about, like noble spiritual experiences. And that's really is very rich for spiritual but not religious clients. They feel drawn to psychedelics naturally. And this is like a mutual reinforcement happening here. This is like a little cartoon, a little laughing a little about the situation. I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. Hey, so what kind of spirits are you into? The spirits, in a translation, of course, alcohols, but you could see also medicines or something like this. So some red flags in psychedelic facilitators that's important that you are aware of also when counseling your clients, because they may talk to you about the things they do, so just ask them these questions like, is there informed consent? Is your shaman or your psychedelic practitioner is transparent, has credentials? Does this person self-present as an enlightened being? And you know, a lot of performative, you know, exhibitionism, of spiritual exhibitionism. Is his focus on his own person all the time, or participants' processes? The lack of empathy, once again, this is connected also with narcissists, lack of empathy towards participant vulnerabilities. I've seen being witness to some public humiliations in certain spiritual circles, like very sad, very tragic. I was like, what the fuck? Defensiveness, once again, towards any forms of criticism, very typical, you know, when certain spiritual teachers or people in situations of spiritual power, they are criticized or they are being questioned for something. Their knee-jerk reaction response is like, no, this is your ego speaking, this is, and so forth. And this happens a lot. Authoritarianism, tendencies towards being authoritarian and manipulation. And of course, if there's a history of sexual harassment and abuse, doesn't mean that you shouldn't you should cancel this person. You need to do your own independent research and find out if there is like some meat to those stories, or because not everybody who has been accused is guilty of that. I've been emphasizing throughout this presentation, and have not much to go on. Thanks for your patience here, following here through all this. This emphasis of a spiritual individuation. No? What is spiritual individuation? No? I would say is the process through which an individual develops and embodies your own unique spiritual potentials and essential identity. Okay, in interaction, and you develop this always in relationship, you know, with all human dimensions, all of who you are, your body, your heart, your sexuality, your all everything's invited, and also all other sentient beings, both human and non-human. You know, there's a lot also of like just on a spiritual experience and the spiritual growth that some people had with pets, with animals, you know, with plants, not only psychedelic plants, but just non-psychedelic plants as well, and also the creative mystery, however you want to understand it, that kind of creative, excuse me, creative unfolding of life, of on Earth, or of reality through the whole cosmic unfolding, that we are part of that, you know. And something very important is to clearly differentiate between this individuated self and the kind of like hyper individualistic modern ego, you know. It's kind of the opposite, paradoxically, because the mental ego, hyper-individualistic, is not very disembodied, lives in his or her head, and is dissociated from his heart, disconnected from empathy, disconnected from others, from nature, isolated, you know. This is kind of what this kind of culture is kind of leading, especially younger generations, to become more and more in many ways. And this leads ultimately to some kind of like existence that moves towards ego-gratifying narcissism and hedonism, and narrow forms of hedonism and cynicism and disconnection and isolation. You know, this is one of the greatest problems of our times, especially for our young people, young generations. But the opposite is the spiritual individuated self. And here it's completely the other way around. It's like it's kind of connected, integrated, and has kind of identity that allows this differentiation, that allows this kind of conscious and empathic communion. Empathy, again, is super important with others, with nature and the cosmos. And this kind of leads to this expanded circle of empathic identification. I mean, I identify just with myself, but maybe also with my family, my friends, my people, my city, my human beings, life, and the sky is the limit here, as they say. And I would say that this is the ultimate antidote to spiritual narcissism, to really fully individuate ourselves and to have like this you know, this kind of sense in which you have like this kind of spiritual presence, but that is qualified by personhood, no? So that we can function in the world socially and we have our own personal qualities and dimensions, but at the same time we don't lose track or hold of that kind of like deeper identity. And here is Carl Jung also saying like about this distinction in a different context, different way. Individuation is not that you become an ego, you would then become an individualist, you see? You know, an individualist is a man who did not succeed in individuating. He's a philosophically distilled egotist. Great citation, making that case very strongly, right? The individualist is the opposite of the person who is individuated. Yeah, very, very, very good. I'm finishing the talk now, so we'll have quite a lot of time for dialogue. Some takeaways, I would say, to summarize. The difference between spirituality and religion is fuzzy. That came up already in our dialogue with Michael input. It's important to support clients' spiritual values that can have a lot of merit, experiential knowledge, knowing of a dogma, you know, to strengthen their own inner authority, you know, embracing pluralism, learn from different traditions, while remaining aware of those distortions, you know, that we have been talking about. And in particular, to lovingly challenges tendencies towards spiritual bypassing and narcissism. Avoid spiritual indoctrination of any kind. As therapists, it's important to bracket our own spiritual beliefs. We all have them, one way or the other, more explicit, more implicit. It's important also to have them explicit within yourself so they don't sneak in through the back door in the consulting practice. And also that focuses attention on spiritual individuation and related practical transformational goals. And finally, something that goes for all clients, love your clients, super important, even the narcissistic ones. If you don't love your clients, don't work with them. Refer them to someone else. That's super important. It could be there's a limit. Maybe there's one of those super narcissistic personalities that you just cannot handle them. It's like just too much. It's like wow, you cannot have your heart open, your heart chakras open and feel love. No, don't work with this person. Refer to someone else. I'm gonna leave you with a poem. Maybe you can close your eyes for a few moments. I read you this poem to close the presentation. I invite you to close your eyes. So you can be open not so much to the words in the screen or the words coming out of my mouth, but to the resonances, the resonances that the words kind of awaken in you. And it's a little poem by John Wellgood, the dude I mentioned before, who coined the term spiritual bypassing. So it's very kind of anti-spiritual bypassing poem. Forget about enlightenment. Sit down wherever you are and listen to the wind singing in your veins. Feel the love, the longing, the fear in your bones. Open your heart to who you are right now, not who you would like to be, not the saint you're striving to become, but the being right here, before you, inside you, around you. All of you is holy. You're already more and less than whatever you can know. Breathe out, touch in, let go. Stay a few moments in silence to open to resonances that the words of this very wise psychologist can evoke within each of us. Before we close the meditation, I invite you to to give thank you to yourself for being here throughout this time before opening to dialogue now. And just simply become aware if there is anything of what has been said that is striking a chord or require further clarification for you, or there is something you would like to contribute, to complement, to question. And whenever you want, you can take a deep breath, opening your heart, open your eyes. I put once again here a few questions. We don't have to be constrained by them, but I'll just read them and then we'll open and see where we want to go. Are you able to bracket your own spiritual beliefs in your own clinical practice, if you have one, or in your own conversations, like a clinical practice in particular? Have you ever fallen into psychological or sectarian spiritual narcissism? In what ways and how did you become aware? Or if you did overcome them, how did you overcome them? And then finally, what challenges have you had dealing with a spiritual narcissist in your professional or personal life? Perhaps it wasn't a client, perhaps it's like someone in your spiritual community or in a retreat that you attended. Some possibilities for a platform of dialogue. Maybe why don't we do like we're gonna do like some breakout rooms to generate questions so that everybody has some time to. Charles, are you there?
Yeah, I'm
Charles?
here.
Wonderful. So why don't we do like there's like 7 people here, maybe a group of 3 and 2 groups of 2.
Oh, let's see. 2 groups of 2. Let's see something.
And hopefully Masud and Bianca, even though we don't see them, hopefully will be there. Otherwise
Jorge.
You're here, good.
7 people, since there are 7 people, and I, as I said, I'm a little sick, so
Okay.
I say goodbye to everybody.
Okay, wonderful.
Workshop now, it's a better, pairing.
Wonderful.
Okay.
And Bianca, are you there, Bianca?
Bye,
She
Masood.
just messaged you.
Okay.
Eh?
Bye.
Bye, Masud. Bianca is there? She's not answering. Maybe she's recording. I don't know.
In the
Well,
chat.
anyway.
So you want 2 breakout rooms still, or?
Since we're just 5 people, well, it's good to have at least of that so that the people, everybody talk and generate questions. Or this let's have like just 10 minutes of breakout rooms, 1 of 2 and the other of 2. So, and put Bianca in one of them as a third in case she shows up.
Yeah, hang on, I'll create this, and if we need to adjust, we can. Here we go.
Yeah. And again, you can relate to these questions or other questions that came up. You can.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. I didn't know. I saw you jump out of the room. I didn't know if we haven't set up right. I can't hear you though, for some. You're muted. You're muted. Yep, still muted.
Yeah.
Hang on.
No,
there you go.
what happened is that you put me in one of the breakout rooms with Carlota and Joanna.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it just kind of automatically takes off like that. So
It's totally okay.
yeah.
It's totally okay. So anyway, I think let's see. I think it's good. Even there's a few people. It's a pity no more people came, but yeah, normally things happen and then they have the recording and they'll watch in
Yeah.
advance.
We
Yeah.
heard from a couple of people that got back
Okay.
to us. One was having internet problems. The other one just something came up. And so we'll be sending them recordings, of course. But I haven't
That's
heard from
great.
the others. So I'm not really sure. We'll just kind of keep that open anyway. I'll send the recording, the link out to everybody regardless. And then that way they
Great.
know everyone's got it. Okay.
Exactly. And if you, I don't know if you do that, but I mean, if you send the recording, then they have the slides, so maybe it's not necessary because sometimes people ask me to send like a PDF of the PowerPoint. I can do that, but maybe it's not necessary if you don't normally do it.
Yeah. If you, sorry, I didn't realize my camera's on. If you
Oh,
want to
here
send
you
me
are.
a copy of it, if you want to send me a copy of the presentation, I'll include that with the link. Sure.
Excellent. I'll do it in PDF, not in PowerPoint because that's kind of, but I'll
Sure.
transform it into PDF so that people have it and they can get the links and everything. So yeah, good. Yeah, even though there is few people, like my experience, I'm sure yours is too, is like when you have breakout rooms, then you come back and everybody has something to say.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yep. And breakout rooms always honestly make me a little nervous because I can't tell what's going on inside, and I'm not sure. I'm hoping it's going well. You know, in this case, I'm sure it will be. But sometimes when we have really big groups, it makes me nervous. I feel like maybe I should be checking in on them or something. But
No.
usually it
It's
works
good.
out though.
Yeah, it's good to leave them. Yeah, and if there is something they want to bring up, they will bring it up later. But no, I think people are happy campers. I can feel it.
And I must say too, Jorge, that I really like this content, and this is exactly what I was after to begin with.
Mhm.
And I wish I could get more attention from my list, more people,
Yeah,
because I just don't see how you can address some human issues without taking into account some of this. To
exactly.
me, it's just essential. And I've gotten some feedback from I put ads out on Facebook and stuff. And some of the feedback was just very unprofessional and like, why would you, I don't know, just kind of derogatory, basically. Like one of them was something about, dope smoking hippie or something like that. And I'm thinking, this is a professional forum. I'm sending this out to professional people, and why would you think that way to begin with?
Wow.
Yeah, it was really.
About this one, about the spiritual but not religious.
Yeah, no, the one before it was a transpersonal when we use that terminology, which to me, I love that
Yeah.
terminology, but apparently it didn't go over very well. So I'm mentioning these things to you so we can kind of think about that. How can we tweak it a little bit so that
Yeah.
to get those people? I think if you set in and think about it, although there's so many the scientific model is such that everyone wants this, measurable hard science kind of thing, and people aren't like that. I mean, I don't know. For me, there's so much of it that you can't manage that way. It just kind of freaks me out that there are individuals in this line of work that are like, no, it's got to be,
Yeah, it's quite sad. Like, many people who study like in very mainstream, like psychology, psychotherapy programs, cognitive behavioral and stuff. In those programs, like sometimes the transpersonal psychology is being dismissed. It's like, oh, this is like hippies in California doing like that, and they completely ignore that it's a whole scientific studies, like handbooks, like tremendous scholarly work behind research, a lot of things. But it was kind of like, oh, no, this is like these people doing California, like spiritual mambo jumbo. It's like, wow, it's like,
Yep.
so it's
Yeah,
sad
so-
because they don't know what they're speaking about, but just inherited and internalized some probably beliefs of the teachers or something that they. It's sad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just find it interesting because when you're in the business of helping people, if nothing else, you should be open to different ideas,
Right.
open to different ways of approaching and handling stuff that maybe has caused you a problem in the past. I mean, if for no other reason than that, it's worth trying, it's worth looking at. And so,
Right.
yeah, I've just found that really surprising. I would never have guessed that it would be quite like that. But then, I'm in Oklahoma, it's very conservative. And so
Right.
some of our base is very conservative, very,
Uh-huh.
structured.
Right.
But I
Is
just
it
don't
very
happen to be that way.
Catholic? Is it very Catholic?
Very Baptist.
Mm.
Very, very Baptist and Church
Wow.
of Christ.
Well, that could be one of the reasons these courses with the word spiritual, transpersonal may not be gelling there, because people come from a more rigid Christian Baptist, then they may feel that this is something, they don't want to even get into or something,
Yeah, I was
So-
hoping that, we expanded my mailing list now is like six states, plus we do Facebook and, advertising, that kind of thing. But a lot of them are similar kind of, it's not New York City, let's just put it that way. It's
Right.
not New York City or LA, it's
Yes.
the middle,
Not San
it's a flyover
Francisco,
state.
not San Francisco.
Yeah, exactly. Not San Francisco at all, But part of the reason why I want to do this is precisely to bring these ideas to this area because I think it's really, really sorely needed.
Yes, yes. Well, something we are learning already is that this way with the spiritual but not religious was more effective than the transpersonal. Okay.
That's right.
So this is we're learning through this process. I'm learning through this process as well. So
Yeah, me too.
this is a way to maybe we can at some point do another one of these and see if we get more people because and maybe we can continue also thinking about the ways in which we can bring some of these considerations with a different title that doesn't makes people react like
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, some of it, I think a lot of it is exactly that, a knee-jerk reaction to, there's some like sound bite that for whatever reason, it triggers this knee-jerk reaction. I don't approach things that way at all. And so for me, it's just surprising, but it's also, it really is why I wanted to do this because I see this and, I have 5 therapists that work for me and I see it in them and they tend to be more open-minded just because I wouldn't hire them if they weren't. And you still get that a little bit,
Yes.
So I think that this is, I think, it's good for us to pursue this sort of topic, but like you said, maybe tweaking it a little bit, maybe adjusting, mix it up somehow. I don't know exactly how. Some way to sneak it in.
Continue. Well, I mean, this in a way, this came out when the transpersonal psychotherapy didn't form. That was an idea that came, and that this comes from that process. So maybe after this, something else will come. That
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
you were saying you're going to be in Mexico at the end of this February, right?
Well, I'm leaving on Sunday. I'm gonna be there the entire month of February.
Oh yeah. In
Yes,
Mexico
yes.
City, right?
No. I'm going to the coast of Oaxaca.
Oh, Oaxaca. Okay, yeah, sure.
Have you been in Mexico?
Yeah, I've been, but just like Tijuana, just across the border, not very
Oh,
far.
Tijuana. I know Tijuana as well. Yes, close to San Diego, right?
Yeah, we're fixing. My wife and I are fixing. We're preparing to do a lot more traveling, and so I'm very interested in that. We just kind of have decided, getting close to retirement age, and so we're going to start doing more traveling this. I don't know about this spring, but this summer for sure, and on into the fall. And so
Excellent.
Mexico is definitely going to be one that we'll spend more time.
I love
checking out.
Mexico. If at some point if you go there, yes, contact me. I'll give you some tips, some places. My favorite. I mean, there's so many Mexicos. It's like such a huge country, I mean, DF has some neighborhoods that are super cool, culturally, restaurants super top, but you need to avoid the areas that are dangerous. There is some dangerous areas, but the good ones are huge. It's like. But I mean, I love the Oaxaca coast. It's very tranquilo. It's very safe because you also need to avoid areas in Mexico and there is like cartel, more than one cartel, and there is like frictions between cartels and corruption in police. I mean, that's kind of the shadow of Mexico. But the coast of Oaxaca is super tranquilo, super safe. There's families, their children. There's no robbery. There is no, it's very, very.
We'll have to give that a try for sure. Yeah, and I've researched and talked to some other people that say the same thing, so I'm sure that's a good choice.
Yeah, and it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous, and many months of like summer there. And then places like San Miguel de Allende is also very beautiful city, colonial city, full of expats, American expats, and so
that was our timer. We're at 10 minutes. You want me to bring them out of the room?
Yes, do.
Okay, hold on. There we go. I'm
Yeah.
gonna close up the rooms. There we go. I think it gives them just a minute or so, and then it'll start bringing them back up into the main area. Yeah, there we go. All right.
Yeah.
I'll go back in the background for now, just so I'm not because I got people coming and going. But I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
It's like 15 seconds and the rooms will close down, so.
I see that in the square. Yeah, I see it. Okay, let's wait for everybody to be back.
I'll be right back, Jorge.
Okay. Okay. So let's just open maybe from there were two groups, no? Maybe we can hear from the two groups to begin with. What are the topics that were more interesting or you were like tackling in? Who would like to go first? Maybe we can wait, start with Joanna and Carlota because Michael is gone, but he'll be back soon and then we'll, yeah.
Well, I presented a marital therapy case from several years ago where I realize now how what was the word I used? How narcissistic the husband was with his religious position, and how much I've learned from this presentation, that he was, actually an abuser, and he was punishing her. Just a second.
Yes.
Thank you.
How he was punishing his wife for wanting to end the marriage, and how charismatic and how just the narcissistic characteristics that he had, that I was not thinking along those lines because of the community I live in. It's mostly, Protestant, and even though he was really fundamentalist, he was, he was an abuser. And so how, I guess, again, ignorant I was and with the sessions. And I later learned that they had been through 2 previous marital counselors, which they didn't tell me. So anyway, so what else did I say about that? My partner.
Yeah, your question was, what could I have done differently so that maybe I could have helped him more, because you were able to support her more, but he eventually quit. So what to do in such a case?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
she stayed in individual therapy and worked through some sexual assault and emotional abuse, and was able to gain strengths to, improve her life and leave her husband, unfortunately, but that, that was to improve her life. So that was kind of what I was reflecting on.
yes. I have two comments here. One is like, of course, like as soon as therapists we hear, we realize, or we even suspect, even if it's not explicitly spoken, that there is some kind of like abuse going on here. Okay, whether this is emotional, physical, or spiritual, whatever form of abuse. In those cases, what I normally do is to arrange as individual session with the person I suspect is being abused, without the other person, and then I, if my suspicions get confirmed, then I do have like a more serious conversation with this person. I bring awareness to her about if she's aware that she's going through abuse, and I can educate her about what's being considered abuse, because some people don't even know. The thing is like the normal thing of fights between husband and wife, and I told her like, listen, this and this is just not acceptable. You could even probably sue him, perhaps. You may not want to go there. I'm not pushing you to go there in this moment, unless of course there's like severe physical and sexual abuse. That's a different ballgame, okay?
Right.
Then the intervention is different, right? But so that's on the one hand, no? On the other hand, like unfortunately, and this is one of the greatest challenges to work with narcissists in general, there is the high risk, it's quite high risk that at the moment that you start confronting them, they quit
Yeah.
therapy. I mean, this can happen. So what I normally do when I see someone of those is I wait a number of sessions, so we establish a rapport. I make sure I get out of my way to some extent that he feels valued by me, that I see his, and he experienced my love for him, that I really love him, and if I experience that, and then only later I start kind of gently, skillfully start bringing some of this, but still the risk is there. The risk is there, like have like couple, seen a couple individually and then and as a couple and individually, and then at some point she was the narcissist, right, in this case, and I crossed a little of a boundary here as a therapist, but it was important. I told him in an individual session, listen, I think I need to confront your wife, but I want to tell you, I'm afraid that whenever I do that, I'm going to lose her. So I did that session, I confronted her. She didn't take it well. And then she went directly home, and then she told the guy told me later, oh, darling, how was your day? Ah, yeah, I went to therapist. The therapist is very bad. I don't go back anymore. A bad therapist, I'm not going back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what happened to the husband.
Right.
He had a male therapist to confront his, and what happened is they confronted him and he quit. I mean,
yeah.
But she continued with me and
Good.
worked on some issues, like I said. But yeah, I was just not, we probably I think the important thing you're pointing out is, as we did not I did not particularly like him. He was mean and abrasive, it was hard to find something to like about him. So he didn't feel the love, I'm sure.
Well, yes,
That was probably
yeah, that's fine. But in a situation like this, okay, what I say, if you don't feel the love, prefer, I mean, when you're individual therapy. If you have a couple, that's different, because even if you don't feel the love with him, you have a sense of protection for the other person that may not force you, but may really push you to stick to the process and see if you can help them, right? Yeah.
right. Yeah. Yes, and then you brought up a point, partner. You want to ask him about that?
Carlota?
Yeah, it's a different theme. It's that, no, it's not Jonah?
It's John.
Okay, not building on what you said, but just a different question, you mean?
That's okay.
Yeah, okay, just checking. Yes, I was reflecting on this concept of pluralism. And intuitively, I resonate with it. The question that comes up for me sometimes is, then what's the difference between that and relativism? Because while I want to be accepting of this diversity, I also recognize in the spiritual but not religious movement communities that there's a common sense around certain values and ideas, like you said. So internally, I'm always in this discernment of, okay, what is this? When is this? Is this really a common sense that is productive, kind of having like a moral compass?
Yes.
Or when is it being naive?
Yes. Good. That's important, because that's one of the fears of certain thinkers and philosophers. Oh, if people want too much pluralism, well, there's like all this cultural relativism, anything goes, anarchy, and so forth, no? But they're very different, actually, The fact, for example, that a river a river can be crossed in a plurality of different ways, okay, in different places, okay, with equal effectivity, okay. We can cross from one bank to the other bank of the river, okay. But that doesn't mean that it's okay to cross the river over the dead bodies of my enemies. It's effective, could be effective, but there's a difference here than to cross the river with building a bridge or doing other things or crossing different areas, but that it's easy. Yeah. Okay. So here is where that's where I bring all this kind of like practical ethical considerations, those tests, egocentrism, dissociation, all these things is what frees pluralism from relativism. Pluralism, in order to, I think, stay true to its true spirit, it should be critical pluralism. We should call it a critical pluralism. It's a pluralism that embraces diversity, celebrates the diversity, but with a critical discernment. So not all manifestations of human manifestations are equally as good as others, and some of them are quite horrible and should not be allowed, like genocide, right? Or just an extreme case, or clitoral vasectomy, or many other things. And there is debates on many of these things, culturally. But yeah, so you can celebrate the diversity of spiritual expressions as vehicles to take us, for example, beyond our self-centeredness, through the love relationship with a personal God, or through emptiness realization into compassion, or the shaman through service to the community. They're all of them going beyond their ego, right, in different ways, but there's many religious practices also. They are quite barbaric and have caused tremendous suffering, unnecessary suffering to people historically. So that's part of our, I would say, our spiritual task today to, and of course, with an awareness that we're doing all these tasks from the perspective of our Western situated Western cultural values. I'm looking at see that because he's the anthropologist here, and that's very important. But you need to go into the global dialogue from a standpoint, and I would go from, would defend fundamental human rights, with my shield and my sword, but I'm also very contextual. I think each case needs to be seen independently, because any kind of absolute principle cannot, yeah, it can be distorted depending on the context. Anything. Make sense?
Mhm.
Yep. Thank you. So let's move to, we still have some time. Let's move to the other group, Michael and Cedar. Where do you guys go with all this?
You want to jump in first, Michael?
No, go ahead.
We had a really fascinating talk, and it kind of went into a little tangent. So maybe I'll give us a very, very brief summary, and then ask a question. We started talking about the transpersonal and the theatrical world, and the way that when
oh my God, that brings you together. My God, what a synchronicity.
Yeah, incredible synchronicity. But and bearing in mind that the pitfalls that you're outlining with spiritual narcissism and spiritual materialism. But when there is a movement into the transpersonal or an IFS work, when we're talking about parts and we're bringing all of these forward onto the stage, and some of the understanding about how to do that is like the work of Chris Beisch is informed by psychedelics. How do we develop community again, and Sangha, and the container for this to happen well? So Michael was mentioning some of your work with spiritual co-creation, and that's the question that I'd love to move into, which is maybe you could explain a little bit more how spiritual co-creation can happen when we're in the transpersonal space and we're moving it through into the work of theater.
The work of theater.
Theater, yeah, or
theater.
the human work, right? The
Oh,
human.
I see. The human theater.
Yeah.
The human theater, okay, not the professional theater that you are involved and you okay. Got it. Well, I mean, some of you know, like I take co-creation of 3 different forms that already kind of they came up in the presentation a little, no? Like spiritual co-creation with all of who we are, no? So that all our different intelligences and ways of knowing and centers, they are as equals coming into the same table to co-create our spiritual life, no? And then the co-creation with other human beings as not as equals, but in the sense that we are all teachers and students. So people that we can learn from and we can teach to, like that sense of equality, no banalizing equality, that homogenizes human beings and leave us in a place in which there is no learning or teaching because everybody is the same. That's stupid. That's not how the human reality it is, So that, and then of course there is that more perhaps potentially speculative dimension, or more that is the co-creation with, as I mentioned before, with that what I call the mystery, call the mystery to that unfolding process of creativity through the cosmos, in life, that kind of, you can call it an energy or a process, the mind, that even on planet Earth, before the emergence of human beings, self-consciousness, was kind of organizing like the fauna, the flora with tremendous intelligence. That there is something there, that, and also the whole unfolding of the cosmos, from particulae to planets and galaxies and so forth. We have talked about this in some of our lectures with the O training. And so my sense is that the more we get out of our heads, the more we go beyond that identification with the mental ego, that voice in our heads that is blah, blah, blah all the time, and the more the mind relaxes into the body, and connects with all these other centers, then the more we are open ourselves to experience even phenomenologically, like that vitality that we have as something that runs, it's not just happening within our organism, like the skin encapsulated ego of Alan Watts, but that's coming from life, or where is it coming from, right? We are what is keeping alive, so our cells all the time, all that, So the human theater, I would say, is like for me, is like because we are mammals. Maybe another a reptilian intelligence would be a different, but we're mammals, and this is very important. We're mammals. Physical contact is very mammal. Relationships are very important, for our survival, evolutionary shaped within us, but also for celebration and for joy, for meta needs, Maslowian meta needs, So because of that, we're not only individuals, we're social beings, So it is in the theater of life, as you put it, where I believe that we can more fully share and with all of us, our co-creations within and beyond. And this is where it is, I would say that whatever we do inside of us, whenever it's happening with that mystery, it needs to pay off here in the realm of relationships. Otherwise, there is something that is off. There's something that not fully completed in that process. Make sense?
Yeah, I hear you saying that the revolution will be relational.
Yes. Good summary. I'm blah 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 blah, and in 2 words you say it.
Yeah, and it really harkens back to the earlier thing we were talking about Sangha, right? And it's a check and balance against narcissism is the need for relationship.
Exactly.
Right? The need for developing shared experience of what those relationships are. And I also hear you saying that even if you do come into the body or move into this sort of transpersonal awareness, that building a shared container of consensus about what is experienced
Yes.
allows that to have a life in and of itself.
Yeah. Absolutely. And just one more thing, and I want to hear from Michael as well before we close. But there was, I'll not mention his name, of course, but there was like one of the one pretty important transpersonal psychologist, also psychedelic movement, who for many is a beautiful man. It's like amazing. But for many years, he did like a lot of his own entheogenic experimentation, mostly in isolation for almost decades, for 2 decades or something like this, no? So when he first came to the Bay Area, we invited him to a conference, there was a sense in which there was like some kind of messianic energy in him, like, and of course we're there with Stanislav Grof, with Richard Tarnas, with a lot of people. I was there too, and we kind of mirror to him like what we're experiencing in a beautiful way, like not, and he gradually got it, and then he reached the conclusion, and we all saw that too. He said like, well, this is what happens when you do all these experiences on your own, and you don't have like your peers and people around that are you have a dialogue with. They can do can happen to anyone, can happen to me, can happen to anyone. The isolation, especially when you deal with these energies, it's not great. It's not a good thing. Thank you, Cedar. Michael, you like to add something?
Do we have any time left, Jorge? I wasn't sure.
Well, yeah, I said, but we start a bit late, so we can, let's engage with you, and then from here, we'll bring to a closure the session.
I just wanted to add to Cedar's point that, without the Sangha, without the cast of characters, it's just a monologue, and
Yes.
there's no story, and there's no dynamism. So we need the whole cast. I love the metaphor. I could talk about that hours. Jorge, I wanted to just go back to spiritual emergency real quick. That's way far back. I have plenty of experience with my own spiritual emergency, as well as working with others who have been through spiritual emergency. And I wanted to ask this question, which is really interesting. And I think there is a lot of, it can be divisive, especially within spiritual communities, which is at what point in a spiritual emergency does the need for medication, the option for medication, become an important question? During my own time, and I know, I don't think any of us here are prescribers, but we may work with people, and it's a big question because whether or not to take medication is a personal decision, and also in the throes of spiritual emergency, it can be difficult to make an informed decision. But I think in my own experience, I was in emergency for months, and I was deteriorating over time. And in the end, I made a decision to take medication, and it ended up being extremely helpful. I have found in spiritual communities, there's often that's a shadow and not a thing that you are supposed to talk about, and the people will oftentimes put the hush on it as something that's really bad or should be avoided. And so I just wonder if in your experience, are there indicators at all that might make it, and even I would say maybe even in terms of people doing psychedelically induced psychosis, like at what point is medication considered something that people might, like pharmaceutical medication, I should clarify,
Yes.
might consider?
Yeah, that's a great question, Michael. When I would say that, for example, one of the greatest, most common symptoms when spiritual emergency is a high degree of anxiety, anxiety that can even turn into a sense of almost apocalyptic, imminent apocalypse, imminent. And I've experienced that myself. I did have some experience of that, and a short-lived episode in my life. So I know what it is, and it's not fun at all. It's like horrible. It's like, wow, it's like things are gonna apocalypse now, it can happen any moment. It's like, right? And in my case, I didn't take medication, but I would say that insofar as the client is able to do psychological sessions, the anxiety is not strong enough that the person can really do sessions and can like follow through and can like do other practices that the therapists recommend. I think it's a good thread to follow. But if the anxiety is so high that the person just cannot, it cannot really like psychological sessions are not really fruitful or helpful because the client just is not benefiting, not because the sessions are bad or the approach is bad, it's because the anxiety is so high that and in those cases, I'm not anti-medication. Do you remember those T-shirts? I think we're in California that say medication or meditation, no? Like this disjunctive, and they were like this meditation. No, well, it could be both, I think it's important to only use them when it's truly necessary. I would say anxiolytics, I think could be extremely helpful in certain spiritual emergencies. I'm less fond of antidepressants for a variety of reasons, because on the one hand, they have been demonstrated by far they don't work better than placebos, and also certain use can affect your brain in non-reversible ways, and that's all the research is out there, But even for a short time, having helpful for many people is probably placebo, but definitely helpful for many people, So if it's for a short time, you could use it too as well, And then the idea, of course, is to, as soon as the person, even a person with high levels of anxiety during one month, you give him like an anxiety pill, and in 2 hours you can have a completely different conversation. So that's helpful. Maybe it's the first conversation you can have that, and the person is calm, And of course, the idea is like to move to other interventions, and yeah, makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, I think our time is over, Charles.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you all of you who are here now, and also thank you all of you who you will be watching this webinar from home at your own rhythm. Charles is going to send you all, I believe, the slideshow and all the recording, and also I'll send to Charles the PDF of the PowerPoint so you can have that presentation. And yeah, Charles told me that it's quite common in these webinars that many people who sign, they don't show up at the end because of a variety of life things. And so anyway, maybe I'll just thank you all of you. It has been a pleasure and seen some known faces and meet some new people like Joanna. So thank you. I'll pass the baton to Charles to see if he wants to say something to close.
When you close out of your browser, though, a survey pops up and asks you, to evaluate the course material. And please do that. Take a moment. It doesn't take very long. It also asks you how you want your name to appear on your attendance certificate. So if you fill that out, if you've already sent it to me, it's a duplicate. You don't have to. You don't have to do that again. But we really do appreciate the feedback, and want to thank you all for attending today. And I hope you all have a great weekend.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you,
See
Jorge.
you later.
Give me
Thank
5
you.
stars, okay? Just kidding. Ciao, Velos.
Bye.